Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. We are here for our Board of Finance regular meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll pledge of allegiance. Mr. Allwanger, will you lead it?
Sure.
Pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, great. We don't have a long agenda tonight, but there may be folks online who are paying attention because tonight is the main event for tonight's meeting is item number 5, which is to hear, consider, and set the mill rate for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2027. For those who are paying attention online, the backup for that item can be found on the town website. If you click through the Board of Finance section, and it's not in the regular backup, if to the right, there's a more button. You click on that and you'll get to the mill rate backup. So just want to put that out there as advance. But item number 3 tonight is consider an act on approving an appropriation of $68,636 for the purchase of a MadVac litter vacuum for litter pickup on sidewalks, fields, and lots as needed. This item is fully funded using account 1000-6070-53200, which is also known as affectionately known as the NIP fund. This item requires approval from both the Board of Finance and the RTM, and tonight presenting the item is our Public Works General Manager, John Cattell. So John, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And for the public's benefit, I apologize. The backup for this item is page 1 on the backup. So John, you have the floor.
Thank you. As in the backup, it shows you basically what a MadVac is. It basically looks like a golf cart with a big vacuum hose on it. It's useful in cleaning up litter in fields, parking lots, gutters, sidewalks. You can drive down the sidewalk and suck any litter up. The fund that will be used on this is the NIP fund. NIP fund is from your alcoholic nip containers. Each container that is sold in the town, one nickel is given to the town as a revenue, which requires all 3 boards to approve the use of this fund. Currently, the town of Fairfield gets about $35,000 a year. That's over $712,000 this year. State of Connecticut goes through about $93 million a year. They wind up being thrown out windows on the street, wind up in the gutters or other events or locations. So this piece of equipment is a quick, easy way to pick up litter, including alcoholic nips that are. The fund was used for other items for a boom by the Conservation Department in the Brewster River to collect litter from there. We used some of this fund for the shed roof at the transfer station to augment the grant that we got from that. Purpose of the fund is for reducing municipal solid waste and any recycling programs. With that, I am more than willing to try and answer any questions.
Great, thank you for that. That's helpful. Any questions from the board? Mr. Walsh.
So you're actually saying that people are drinking and driving and throwing these out windows?
That is the claim.
Wow. Wow. So last time you talked about this fund to us, you said that this item was going up. That was your next planned use because someone had raised the idea of using it for something else. And you said that the fund, there was various legislation up at the state about these NIPs and how to handle them in different ways. Has that changed to your knowledge?
It did not pass in this last legislation, but there are people trying to put legislation forward to either have the NIPs incorporated into the bottle fund. So therefore there's a price in returning them that would help people either keep them or other people pick them up sides of the road, or possibly banning, giving the different municipalities the authority to ban the sale of the, which then obviously would do away with the fund. So there's potential, this fund is not forever ongoing potentially. It's been about 3 years. How long it goes for, I can't tell you.
This is the only one of these bad acts that we have.
We do not have a Mad Vac anymore. I've used these in Bridgeport. We had over 12 plus. We had one point in time, I think Bridgeport had the most Mad Vacs of any city in the US. They're an efficient way to get around a large area and pick up litter and trash. Suck up bottles, they'll suck up cans, they'll suck up needles or whatever else that you don't want to be grabbing with a hand or.
Where do you primarily see this being used? Down at the beach?
It won't be used on the beach, but it could be used in the parking lots. I can see it going up and down the Post Road for any garbage on the sidewalks. Going up your major thoroughfares or Reef Road, people walking down to the beach or Beach Road.
Black Rock Turnpike.
Black Rock Turnpike, extending it to your shopping corridors.
Do you have plans on what you're gonna do with the next fund already? You have like a.
I'm looking forward, I'm almost going to try and bring forward the other program I want to do is to purchase radiation detectors.
Oh, you mentioned that.
Transfer station, after reviewing it, right now, there's only $118,000 in the fund. So minus subtracting this, the radiation detectors will be about another $60,000, $59,000, $60,000. So I didn't have enough funds to incorporate that at this point in time. So I figure, okay, that has to be put. Thank you.
Mr. Elwanger.
So is this replacing a person now or another machine or a piece of equipment? How is the litter being picked up today?
Well, when we get hit with the complaints that there's a bunch of litter in certain areas, we send out a person. It's the old fashioned way, or here might be a picker that picks them up and puts them into the bag and do it that way. So it's a little slower and a little, not as efficient. This way, like I say, we can put it on a trailer, take it to a remote spot, have it out of his street, really, or walk down the sidewalks.
And you have a warranty for a year and 1,000 hours. Would we burn through 1,000 hours in a year, you think?
I don't know for sure. A lot of it depends on how often I can get it out.
And what's the capacity of probably? How much litter does it hold?
It's about, it's a good garbage size can in the back of it. I don't have that.
And is this just for Public Works or Parks and Rec, Conservation?
Be used anywhere,
Used
in any
anywhere.
of the locations. We get a lot of litter around the train stations.
Yeah.
We get a lot of litter, like I said, something to that effect.
So do you trailer it to a location and
We
then?
can, yes.
Yeah.
So if this is, we're to go up to Black Rock Turnpike, we throw it on a trailer.
Yeah.
This is a little quicker.
Great. Mr. Rocks.
How many of these are in operation in the state of Connecticut, or can you give me some? You mentioned Bridgeport.
Bridgeport uses a lot of them. I think Waterbury bought some with their. Like I said, Bridgeport's been using them for 20, 30 years. I don't have the full count on sale.
Any research, did you call other departments and say, how's it working for you? Is it?
No, because I had experienced it when I was 30 years in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
But it's not.
22 years in Bridgeport.
Is it just the tube and the suction? That's it? There's nothing in the front that would be?
They have other adapters that can spread it out a little bit lower, but I see it used a lot with just, the tube to suck things up. It's like an 8-inch tube, I believe.
Okay, any other questions? Not hearing any. Can I get a call for the vote? Mr. Fuller?
Make a motion. Did you ever make a motion to approve this?
No. Need it.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Pennis? Any other further discussion on this? Not seeing any. All in favor? Great. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the evening and your summer.
Summer.
And item number 4 on the agenda is to hear, consider, and act on the suspense list for the tax collector. Presenting tonight is our tax collector, David Tunsky. Did I get that right? Close, right? David, are you with us? Can we get David unmuted? Thank you.
Yes, I'm here. I just can't turn on my camera. Oh, wait, here we go.
No worries at all. For the public's benefit, the backup for this item is on page 5 online. So do you want to take us through this? Let's see.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we
All right,
got
the
you.
host wasn't letting me unmute, so I wasn't sure. All right. All right, I think we're good now. All right, so in accordance with 12-165 of the Connecticut General Statutes, I'm requesting that the Board of Finance approve the transfer of tax accounts amounting in $110,265.66 to the suspense tax book. My office has spent a considerable amount of time researching these accounts in order to be put on suspense. We believe that these accounts to be uncollectible to the best of our knowledge. We've done our full due diligence. A lot of these accounts, it could be the individuals have either passed away, moved out of town, moved out of state, were unable to find them, or out of business. But I also want to note that, although we are suspending these tax accounts, they still remain collectible for a period of 15 years. If we do receive any additional information that would allow us to collect them, we would still pursue collecting, and they still would be collected as normal.
Thank you. Mr. Rock.
Can you take me through your collection efforts? Just your first effort, second effort, third effort, is there a phone effort, et cetera? Just walk me through how it works.
Sure. So there's 2 different types of tax types that we're suspending here. You have your motor vehicle taxes as well as your business personal property taxes. We typically would not suspend real estate taxes because that is a secured debt that's on land, and there's usually not an issue. We eventually collect on that. We file a lien on the land records for the real estate. Motor vehicle and personal property can be a little trickier. With motor vehicle, the initial attempt would be after we send out the original bill, we would send out a delinquent notice indicating that the bill is late. There's no interest charged. From there, we would place a hold at the DMV where the individual will be required to pay us before they register any vehicle in their name or re-register any vehicle. Once that 3-year registration window passes, we then give it to a collection agency who would have additional means beyond our office, such as, say, skip tracing, trying to find someone if they've moved out of state and we were not able to find their new address either through the DMV or through forwarded addresses provided to us by the post office. So our collection agency would then pursue further collections trying to find them. So that would be motor vehicle taxes. With business personal property, with that one, it's a little trickier because you don't have that defined hold that you can place at the DMV like you can for motor vehicle taxes. So with business personal property, again, we send a delinquent statement after the original bill indicating it's late and interest is now charged. Next step after that would be that we would send a demand letter, which indicates that due to non-payment, we will move forward with additional collections and additional fees through collecting through a state marshal. That would either issue a bank execution or serve a warrant to the business in person. And then if the marshal indicates to us that they're either out of business or unable to locate the business, they've done their full due diligence along with our due diligence, we will file what's called a UCC lien with the state. It's not as guaranteed as a traditional lien for real estate filed on the town land records, but if the property, or I'm sorry, if the business was sold traditionally, not just like with a handshake, it was sold, we could capture payment through that lien. Otherwise, we suspend it because both my office and the state marshal has determined this business is no longer here. They left town, we're unable to locate them, and we're unable to collect the tax.
Can you give me, by effort, your success rate, the percentage?
Sure. So just, I don't have that in front of me, but, overall, tax-wise, as you know, we're a little over 99%, and it's right around 99% likely for business personal property taxes, and probably in the 98% range with the motor vehicle taxes as well, because again, the majority of the motor vehicle taxes, they're getting paid because individuals know, one, they're getting charged interest, and two, it's not that they would have to, typically it's not that they just wait the full 3 years until they have to register their car again, because a lot of times people own more than one car, or they want to register a new car, and the DMV and state law requires that if you owe any motor vehicle tax in your name, you cannot register any car, re-register any car until any of your motor vehicle taxes are paid. So that's a very effective tool where, yes, we're still collecting upwards of 98% or more on motor vehicle. It's typically just the list that we're spending is the individuals that have either passed away or just left the state. And, we just haven't been able to find them through all of our efforts.
Okay, I'm really just interested in the uncollectible universe and what the, you've got a first effort to the uncollectibles, you've got a second effort, and then you're going to a third party. And I get the DMV part, but I'm just in that uncollectible universe. I'm wondering about the success rate that we have from our own internal methods. If you have any idea what that looks like, just in that uncollectible.
Well, yeah, again, we're on the current year motor vehicle or personal property, and maybe I wouldn't clarify this the first time around. So on our current year motor vehicle or business personal property, these are the two tax types that we end up suspending eventually. On our current year, we're collecting almost 99% on each. So I would say we have a very high success rate, and this is really just the lingering remaining balance that we've we're unable to collect through our due diligence. And these are 5 or 6 years old in terms of motor vehicle, because we have that 3-year registration window, and then we have our collection agency, we give them another 3 years to try to collect as well.
Mr. Rock, I think I just want to follow up on your question, because I think it's probably difficult for tax collection or collector's office to differentiate between first attempt, where most of the stuff comes in, second. I think what may be more telling is what percentage of taxes end up going to a collection agency, and of that percentage, once it goes to the third party, are we getting about half? Are we getting a quarter? I guess that may be a more relevant data point if you happen to know it. Like, once it goes to collection, is that bearing fruit, or does the number not move much?
It doesn't move much because again, this is like the worst of the worst. It's kind of like a last ditch effort. It's typically the hold at DMV is almost a surefire, bet to get it paid. And when it doesn't, that's an indication of, okay, something happened. They either passed away or they've moved far away from Connecticut. and we're not getting, we don't have a readily available address to find them. So then we give it to the collection agency, kind of like as a last ditch, like, here's this list. If you collect it, great. If you don't, because it's no cost to the town. Legally, their state law allows them to charge a fee of 15% on top of, what's owed. So there, it's really, there's no loss to the town.
Is the collection agent, what's the deal with them? Do they get 50% of whatever they get, or?
15, I think you just said.
They get an additional 15%. We get the full tax and interest that's owed at the time.
Charge a fee to the debtor. So we get,
Yes,
if
correct.
they owe us 100, we get 100, they get charged 115.
Correct, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Mr. Ellwanger.
Two questions. How does the 110,000 compare to each of the last 3 years?
Sure. So off the top of my head, I know last year was 107,000, so it's very comparable.
Okay.
There were no outliers in looking at the numbers. There weren't any individual accounts that were extremely large compared to last year, and for it to be $3,000 more than last year really is just, there could have been a handful of more motor vehicles this year than last year, but it's really not a large outlier by any means.
Mm-hmm. And 2019, why is that so high on the supplemental and the regular motor vehicle?
So that is because what we do is, because there are so many motor vehicle taxes compared to, we bill over 40,000 motor vehicle taxes annually, maybe only 2,500 business personal property taxes. So it's a very, very large number. So what we typically do is, the 2019 is approximately 6 years ago. So we say, okay, the first 3 years, they didn't try to come back and pay because they had to register a car. We gave the collection agency another 3 years to try to collect it. Almost 6 years has passed. We haven't collected it. So we suspend the entire grand list. Any other more recent motor vehicle tax years, that's because we've either been given information or have done our own research and determined, okay, this person has passed away. There's no funds in the estate to pay the taxes. We know we're not going to collect it, so we suspend it on an account by account basis.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any. Okay, get a motion to approve this. Ritola?
Make a motion to. Is it item number 4?
So a motion to approve the expense list for the tax collector. Second for Mr. Wallace. Any other discussion on the minutes? Not seeing any, all in favor? Unanimous, 9-0. Thank you. And Amy, good to see you. Debbie, good to see you. Gentlemen. All right. The next item on our agenda is item number 5. Here, consider and set the mill rate for the fiscal year ending July 1st, 2026 and ending June 30th, 2027. The backup for this item, as mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, is not in our regular package. If you're online and going to the town website, when you get to the backup area, if you go to the right and click on more, that will take you to the backup for this item. And Tom, do you want to take us through this, or do you want to take us through this? Yes.
You and I had spoken about this earlier today. You're gonna talk to our assistant clerk.
Yeah.
About like this part of the backup should have just been an amended backup, but with the backup.
Yeah,
With the board of finance stuff, because if you're a member of the public and you are going to look at our backup, you are not looking for more categories.
yeah.
You shouldn't have to go every time you want to go to a meeting. It's either should be a supplemental backup.
Yes.
Listed under the thing, or just a reposting of the backup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it does get confusing whether it's this item or any others. When it goes into the more section, it often gets, it's hard to track down. So I will speak with Ms.
I appreciate you doing that, because I even got confused, to be honest with you. You know, and you told me it was under more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, no worries. But I agree. I don't think that's a hardship for her combine the PDFs together, put it all together in one spot.
What I've seen her do in the past years is there's updated backup, that just becomes the backup for the meeting. It just changed before, and she could put a date or time what that is and just list it as the most current backup.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll do
I
that.
appreciate you looking into that. Thank you.
Okay, Ben, why don't you take us through this, please?
Okay, good evening. What you have in front of you is a 6-page document that I will walk you through. Schedule A is a historical look at the collection rate for the trailing 5 years with a 3-year average. 99.16 actual was used as the budgetary basis for the collection rate. On Schedule B, Schedule B is a walk from the approved expenses and revenue section down through what is the gross assessors list as of January 31st, down to the assessors list as of May 28th. It moves from the 22.19 billion down to 18.44 billion. The largest component of the reduction is the gross tax exempt properties and exemptions of 3.7 billion. Added, reduced from that is also the BAA adjustments that were 120 million at the last Board of Finance meeting and an additional 48.6 BAA adjustments and other. 42.6 of that was BAA work, and 6 million is additional certificates of completion for the balance of the year. Netting a net grand list of 18.27 grand list, to which the motor vehicle supplemental is added, a property available for assessment after final BAA net grand list of 18,397,000,000. Using those figures as a calculation, you get the required mill rate of 0.0124, which is a 32.23% reduction over the mill rate from FY26 of 0.02839.
And before we move on, do you have questions, Mr. Walsh?
But that mine is 32.23 and the mill rate means absolutely nothing. People's residential taxes are skyrocketing, correct?
Well, I can't, they are going up.
It doesn't seem like that's a good guy. That's a horrible guy, actually, because we are going to be, with valuations going up the way they have.
Yes, taxes.
That's not an attempt to mislead. I mean, typically.
I know, but
It's year to year change. That's all it does.
And if people could give me just a little bit of leeway here, Ben and I spent some time on this schedule. And I wanted to make sure that I followed it and he just took us through all the numbers, but I just want to confirm for everyone's benefit and primarily those listening online. So the top line on Schedule B, the 400,381,928, that was the RTM approved expenditure budget. Now that was $10,000 more than what we approved.
Correct.
Because there was a petition to have the $10,000 cut that we made for the Norma Freem Foundation reinstated. The RTM did vote to approve that, so that was reinstated. So that number is $10,000 higher than what we approved. The other items on the list, down to about the middle where it talks about total required tax levy 346,236. That's unchanged from where we were otherwise, right? So that,
Yes.
those numbers should be the same. And then the middle section of this schedule talks about this, the grand list. And there were 1, 2, 3 line items that were adjusted since we saw it last. The 3.9 million adjustment were for certificate of correction changes year to date or calendar year to date that were not included in our numbers. The second 3.9 million were also certificate of correction changes, but they were related to tax exempt properties. So that was just calendar year to date numbers. Those two sum to the 7.8. And then, as Ben pointed out, the BAA adjustment as published by the assessor after the BAA process was concluded was 162 million, but included in that is an additional 6 million for certificate of corrections that for the remainder of the year.
Correct.
Okay, so that gave me a lot of comfort that the walk made sense. But we can still discuss this if anyone else has any questions. Yes.
Yeah, I had a question on how the 10,000 came back to the RTM
Yeah.
to vote on.
Yeah, so,
So I know, obviously, I'm very familiar with what the RTM can do.
Sure.
2/3 vote to make the motion to add it back and
Yep.
have it be, et cetera. I was on the RTM.
Yep.
But what triggered that going in front of the RTM?
they filed a request to have it reinstated.
The,
Norma Frame.
There's also a second request that was.
Yeah, there was another one for the
yes, I saw that.
Kennedy Collective, which the RTM deliberated and ultimately did not vote to reinstate.
Was what, 15, Craig?
That was 15,000.
Thank you.
So tonight, we really have to, before we set the mill rate, we have to talk about two things. One, the collection rate, which we got a preview on in the previous slide, what we're comfortable with. Historically, we've looked at that 3-year average, which would be 19.16 or 99.16. And then the second thing is, since we took action to vote on the budget, the state actually provided detail on the amount of grants that were going to be received by the town of Fairfield from the state. And that was roughly 920 or 940.
942,000.
942. And that we can't re-vote on the budget itself, but we can take that into consideration when we're setting the mill rate. Those two, the collection rate and this extra 942 are things that we can discuss. And so, Ben, why don't you, if we don't have. Okay.
I just want to put something, I don't care where it goes, but another subject. I'd like to talk about the BAA adjustment that's on here, both on Schedule C and also the document that Ben talked about on Schedule.
Okay, so before we move off of B, why don't we talk about that?
I don't know who wants to talk about it, but
Yeah.
when we first got the budget, this board of finance got the budget.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a positive $34 million, and it went to a negative $34 million error.
Yeah.
And then we asked Ross Murray, who I see is on the call, I think that's who Ross is on the call.
Yeah.
We asked him to come up with a realistic number on that number to give us, and that number then went to 120 million.
20, yeah.
120 million even.
120 even, that was as of when we were deliberating.
And then the number now I see has gone up to $168,640.283, which is quite a large, another 25% increase on top of that.
Yeah.
And you were good enough, Mr. Chairman, to send out something from Ross in regards to the BAA appeals.
Yep.
And I will say some of that numbers that were sent out were quite shocking, because it showed almost 80% of the people who appealed, which was 900 and some odd, 911, something like that.
Yep.
But almost 80% of the people the appellants received either a partial or a full reduction in what their assessed value. To me, that's a 100% failure of the revaluation. I have never seen in all my years something like, number one, the number of people who appealed was huge. I will say the BAA had their work cut out for them for 2 months.
Yeah.
Dedicated their lives to it, and for that, I tip my hat to them. I didn't think they would get it done, to be quite honest with you. And that's why I asked that they show up last month, because I was nervous about whether they would show up. But for that number to go where 80% of the people granted their either partially or fully their appeal.
Yes.
There was a complete failure of that revaluation. And something needs to be done, and there's got to be a postmortem on that. And I don't know whether our board should look into this at a later point. But that is insane, because what that's telling me right now is everyone's gonna see this, right? There's, I mean, newspaper articles written about it. And only 911 people appealed. Next year, it could be 1,800 people appeal, because they saw that you have an 80% chance of success. Because the people didn't appeal this year can appeal the next season. And I would agree with you. I would encourage them to.
So tell everyone in the whole town to go.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because it is, and.
It's done
and
wrong, clearly.
I think that it's just an indictment on the appeal. And I will say, I don't know how many of you watched any of these meetings or attended them. I attended one. I saw my own. I stayed for most of the meeting. I listened to many because the way it's working now, it used to be they'd print what appeals they were hearing every day. They don't do that anymore. They just say, these 10 neighborhoods potentially could be heard. So for a while had in my office on every meeting. And that just got crazy. But it allowed me to get an insight of that. And what I was shocked to see and happy to see as a taxpayer, as an elected official, was the amount of work that the people on that BAA, you think it's just like some random group of people. No, we are lucky in this town, and our BAA has many real estate professionals on there who were bringing up their own comps. They would do the work before they went into the meeting. They're bringing out their own comps, some to challenge the appellant, saying the appellant didn't bring up the proper, comps that they thought should be used. Others were saying, no, there was other comps out there that supported the appellant, and they knew the neighborhood. I mean, because some of the real estate people, they're in these markets every single day. They know a good deal when that's a good deal. But it is, so I think kudos to the BAA, because it would be pretty easy just to not listen to these appeals when you have 911 of them and just to turn them down. But kudos to them, listening to some of them. Properties I didn't even know, like many of them I didn't know. But kudos to them for going through and spending the effort on each appeal and granting them. But something is wrong.
Well, I mean, I think you shared a lot of good points, but you also shared a lot of opinion. And I don't think it's fair to say that it was a complete failure. I think that any process, especially one that was so significant in terms of change to valuations, a postmortem's a good idea. But I think we do have the assessor on the line. We can ask Ross in his opinion if he felt that it was a failure or not. But you would expect that when the preliminary results came out and they were consistent with Westport and Greenwich and a number of towns in the surrounding area where you had a spike in upwards of 60% increase in residential values, that was kind of a 100-year flood equivalent, right? And you would expect that there'd be an inordinate number of appeals as a result. And I think I agree with you. I think the BAA did a phenomenal job. They were overwhelmed, but they stayed with it to the end. And I think to credit those who did appeal, they came armed with good information. And, as a result, good on the BAA for hearing it and deliberating, good on the appellates for coming in armed with good information. And, we are seeing an adjustment downward. I don't think it's a fair statement to say that it was a complete failure just because we saw meaningful adjustments. I think it's an example of the process working.
As a businessman yourself, you hired a consultant and they turned out to be 80% wrong.
Well,
I'm
wrong on those, on the small population. What population didn't appeal, right? So I don't think it's fair to say it was 80% wrong, but yeah, Ms. Ruggiero.
So if we're gonna compare what happened with other markets like Westport and other towns, do you have the data to share on how many appeals they had and what percentage got reduced?
We can ask the assessor.
I would like to understand, because if I people may not have gone through the motion to appeal thinking they would lose, but, someone might take out a full ad and say, hey, go appeal next year. Like, 80% got reductions. It's a money save by far. I mean, you're gonna have a huge hole.
I don't think it's necessarily indicative of the whole, like Kirk said, you could have the people who came forward to appeal or the people who maybe were the most obvious, just, streets. So it could be a lot of people who wouldn't have that kind of success rate. I just don't think that what we're seeing here is indicative of, oh, everybody else is gonna 80% reduction. There's nothing to suggest that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, my street they are. When I talked to them, nobody else really appealed on my street. It's a
I think
long
that's
street.
wrong.
Now all of us are like, you were granted? Like, yeah, the numbers were wrong. You could appeal next year.
So we should get the information you guys asked for.
Mr. Mottola and then Mr. Rock.
I was just gonna say that when this came out, it was so well publicized and people were talking about it. I think people understood that they had the right to appeal, and many did initially, did the first step. And so, I could be wrong. I don't see anything really that.
So why don't we open it up to Mr. Murray? Ross, can you hear us? Oh, sorry,
can.
yeah, Mr. Rock.
I want to also note here that according to my math, 96% of Fairfield property owners did not appeal.
Yeah, because they don't think there's a possibility of winning, nor do they know how to do
So
it.
they thought that was fair.
No, that's not what they think.
We don't know what they, we don't know what they.
I'll
think
tell
time
you
will
from the
tell.
people that I've spoken to, like, well, what did I have to do? I didn't think there was any chance
So
of fighting.
4.3% of the
Yeah.
taxable properties filed an appeal.
Yeah.
4.3.
Yeah.
And of that, there was 957, and then there was a bunch of people who didn't even make it to the next step. So it's actually 70% of the 957.
70% of what 957?
Well, we'll let Ross get into it.
There was
There's-
70.
It was 957 to start.
Yeah.
And then they only heard like 823. And from there, they were full and then partials. But all I'm saying is, there's buckets, Jim. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think that we can say this is a failure on the entire process.
We've never had a situation, and we'll have to let Ross talk to it,
Yeah.
where out of the ones that appealed, 80% of them have been granted. Almost 80. It's like 78 point something.
It's 77,
Something,
2 or
whatever.
something like that.
Yeah. So I've never seen that ever. And let alone the dollar size, because the dollar sizes start off at 34 million, goes to 120 when he realizes how many appeals.
It's such a small bucket though. It's a
Oh, I think the
small-
bucket's gonna get very large next year.
It could, you might be right.
Yeah, and it should actually, to be quite honest with you.
So why don't we bring Mr. Murray into the conversation? So Ross, can you hear us?
I can.
Great. Obviously, I think you were listening as we started to get into this discussion. Do you have any thoughts on the BAA process, where the numbers shook out? Whether you felt like the process worked, or were there elements that worked and elements that didn't work? And lastly, do you expect to have some type of postmortem or debrief to revisit what went well and what didn't go so well?
Well, first off, I'll comment on the percent that were reduced. That is actually not an uncommon number. I have an 11-year history in front of me, and last year was 77%. The year prior, 71, prior to that, 81%, and prior to that, 92. So 78% is not unseen or unheard of in the past.
Helpful.
What makes the number large is the sheer number of appeals. Now, in the last reval in 2020, we had 619 appeals. This time it was 876 that were actually heard and decided on by the BAA. The difference being appeals that withdrew and commercial accounts that were greater than $1 million, and there were a couple of duplicates that were discovered after we finished intaking all the appeals.
So why don't you pause there for a second, Mr. Murray? Mr.
Sure.
Myers.
Ross, so in 2020, when there were 619 appeals, what percentage of the 619 were granted the change? Success?
That was a 45%. That,
Okay, so
that,
I think that was the point that Mr. Walsh was making. He's not talking about the in-between years where there's only like, 60, if that, I don't even know what the number would be in the individual years. But on every 5 years, that's the comparable here that we're comparing 77 to 45. I would have expected the number to be 50% or less. So 45 sounds about right, and 77 seems that more things were overstated than not. And whether you can extrapolate that over the entire population or not, that we'll see. But that's the conclusion that I think a reasonable, logical person would draw, which is what we're trying to point out.
I would say knowing the BAA in 2020 and the one in 2025, the 2020 BA was a much more conservative group in their reductions than you had this time.
What do you mean much more conservative group?
They reduced less.
Or what?
So for instance, this BAA reduced an average of 17% in dollar amount. The BAA in 2020 reduced 3%. And that was a very rare number. I mean, we haven't seen anything under 10% in the past 11 years. So in 2020, that was a conservative group.
Yeah, so I want to try and take these in order. So Mr. Rock, then Mr. Penley, and then back to Mr. Welch.
Ross, what does it say for, this year was completely unexpected. I mean, what was it, 68% rise in the values, and commercial lagged. I mean, this was a pretty bizarre year. Probably couldn't be replicated in any history. I mean, I was expecting that there would be a lot, more than usual for sure, just because of the spike. But can you draw any conclusions on how BAA landed based on just these incredibly inflated numbers? And if that made any sort of, what's your sense on that?
I'm not sure I'm quite following you. Are you trying to equate?
I mean, if you go back to
Use
2020.
the BAA adjustments to validate the revaluation? I would never do that.
Right. So, well, there's an argument here that, these are big numbers, and then these are big givebacks, and that if this precedent goes forward, then therefore, we'll have more people coming in and asking for reductions. This year was different in that it was a year where we saw a spike, because it was a reval year, and that reval year was a much larger spike than, say, back in 2020. So you're dealing with different numbers, different architecture, different everything, and you're getting different responses, and then you're getting different givebacks. And I think this is kind of an anomaly in the matrix, if you will. So can you boil that down based on history and give us some sort of, bellwether, or is this just an anomaly and we're not going to see this again?
I don't know if we can predict that. I mean, as you've all pretty much alluded to, this is a very unusual cycle that we're in. Towns that are on a 5 years on the 5-year cycle with us are seeing similar increases. Towns that revaled last year had slightly less, but again, they're still seeing these large increases in the shift between residential and commercial. It's quite common right now. What will happen in the future and how this will impact appeals, I just don't know. It's uncharted.
Mr. Penley and then Mr. Welch.
Hi, Ross. Comparing the reevaluation this year and in 2020, did Tyler do anything different than occurred in 2020? Was there any methodology that was different? Was there any process that was different? I'm assuming the evaluation methodology was not different, but correct me if I'm wrong. And also if there was a process difference.
There was a bit of a process difference, but methodology is the same. I mean, all revaluation companies are held to the same ratio standards and they all pretty much arrive at it the same way. I would say Tyler used a lot more analytics than I've seen from other reval companies. Process wise, like this was a data verification cycle, so we had to do the data verification. I've talked about that, how we've used data mailers instead of boots on the ground knocking on doors, but that really doesn't change the analysis side of it. It just validates the data that we're working from.
So would you, in your opinion, was the data richer this time? Was it more detailed this time than it was in 2020? More reliable?
No, it's not. It's just freshened up.
It's not as intense.
I mean, I think our data is, we didn't see a lot of significant changes from the data mailers or the data check that we did with the flyover and comparing that to our sketches. We didn't find a lot. So that just tells us that the data we have is pretty good, pretty up to date and current, and we're not missing much.
So if the valuation methodology didn't change and the data is about as accurate as it was in 2020, then the only variable I can think of that's changing in the appeal process is the appeal process. Like the people granting the appeals. What's different from 2020? Because you're saying that there's something that's flawed with the reevaluation. And I'm all for having a postmortem. Totally agree with that. I'm just not. Why? What is it suggesting that there's anything wrong with it? Like, what's the premise of that? Just because appeals were granted?
Ross says I think he's alleging that the people were more conservative on the BAA, that's, I don't know, he's saying they're Republican or what he means by the word.
I don't think anybody brought up political.
I just don't know.
I'm sorry, it wasn't a
I don't understand
political
what he means.
statement. It was just.
I don't understand what he means by the word conservative.
Well, it's discretionary. I think that's the point. It's that the variable here is that you have a body of people like us who, in their discretion, are making a judgment.
Yeah.
It's not the actual initial valuation that's different. It's the people who are in their discretion adjusting it up or down. That's the difference in these years, I think.
Well, let me put it this way. He's making that assumption that these people could be more conservative. I can make the assumption saying that the revaluation in 2000 was more accurate. It was more accurate, and therefore, when people brought comps in and everything like that, those comps showed that there should only be a 3% adjustment. If that revaluation is more accurate, people can't find comps to support certain things, then they're not going to be giving away as much. But
I agree.
When I was listening to these hearings, when I was hearing some of these comps, and they were actually talking square footage, number of bathrooms, size of the lot, whatever. People were easily finding comps that were much less than they were. I will tell you, in my own neighborhood, they were valuing the property, a 0.212 acre property.
I hear you. What
$800,000 for the lot. Meanwhile, lots are selling to developers for a lot less. So tell me
the question
that was accurate.
The question that I was asking Ross and that I'm trying to parse out,
Yeah.
and I haven't heard it yet, certainly not from you, not from Ross either. What was different? It doesn't sound like, why would it be more accurate? Why would it be more
You
accurate?
want to get to the accuracy of it? They won't tell you this. And Ross confirmed with me. Tell me all the assumptions and show me in each cell that they do these calculations for, the secret sauce of what they put in for the assumptions. People ask for it. People subpoena it during this process, going up to the Superior Court, and they won't give it. That's proprietary. And it differs from one company to the next. So you make one change in a given number, which we don't know, from what the last company did to now versus what the timing is and what it should be or shouldn't be, and it changes the entire thing.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, Mr. Matola.
I appreciate the conversation and I guess my question would be, I think we, and Ross, I'm probably gonna misstate this, but the way we went about it this year was to have, you said it's a data verification year, And one of the ways to save money on doing this was the method that was used this year, because this was a big reval year. And I remember the gentleman telling us from Tyler that we have this methodology, which, lack of a better term, is in place for spending money to have more boots on the ground. Where you arguably, if you had more boots on the ground, you might get better, more accurate assessment values. I guess my general question to you is, and maybe you can't answer this right now. Do you think it might be better for the town to spend some more money on the evaluation process? Maybe have more boots on the ground, or maybe some other things in order for us to get perhaps, and I'm using this term very loosely, a more accurate process or more fair process. What's your thoughts on that, if you have it?
I don't think it would improve the accuracy. You know, the entry rate is less than 5% by sending people out. So you don't gain anything meaningful by having them going out and knocking on doors. We followed, the state statute and the IAAO, the International Association Standard. We had quality street level images. We had a fresh aerial. We have a building permit program in place to keep up to date with changes. And that is why we don't find many changes from the data mailers. So our data is good, was good at the starting point, and you don't see a tremendous improvement in it because there's not much wrong with it. I mean, you're always going to find something. There's always going to be somebody that has done work that you don't know about, or returned a data mail and then realized that a room count or a bathroom count was wrong. But those aren't major changes in value when those things happen.
Ms. Ruggiero.
See, Ross, I think that the fact that we had an 80%, 77% success, or the people that appealed had that high of a percentage of success, is proof alone. I don't even know what you could say as a finance person that it was a failure. I don't even think there's a question. And to your point, Mr. Rock, about people and the number of people that made noise about this, appealed, et cetera, people aren't paying attention in this town. And when they get the letter in the mailbox, like the warning from the cameras, everybody, it's the hottest thing. There are TikToks out there. Everybody's involved. So obviously, this was not done, in my opinion, correctly. And us conservatives should just sit down and take ads in papers and say that you guys botched this up because it was done wrong, and help people appeal.
Yeah, but
You send letters to everybody and let people know, and they start paying attention, and you make a lot of noise.
I think that's an opinion, but I think you're entitled
But
to
it
your
was like,
opinion.
it's all
But I
subjective,
think
right?
that there's an argument on both sides of that. I think Mr. Rock pointed out some good points. I think when we talk about the process, the most important thing, in my opinion, is that if the tax assessor, along with the BAA, plan to sit down and do a postmortem review and discuss what went right and what went wrong. These are things that should be discussed and brought up in that forum. When I hear that the rate in which appeals were either partially or completely approved at 77% or thereabouts, but I hear that that's consistent with prior years. That tells me that,
Every 5 years. I mean, I think.
there are appeals every,
Mr.
and
I know, but
I do agree with the point that was made.
Minor-
2020 is the most comparable year.
Yeah.
And I think to the extent that there were less successful appeals, that's a point that's worth talking about. But I think the biggest challenge of all of this is they can review the company that they hired, whether they should have done more on-site work or not, field cards or not, whatever the processes were. At the end of the day, the appeals process is also a subjective process. You've got different people sitting on this board this year versus the board 5 years ago. And I'm not putting any political spin on this at all, but I know that different people have different views. And whether it was one that was more literal or strict to the number, or one that was more heartfelt and said that, okay, yeah, but they agree with the analysis and they agree with the appellate. Those are different people. And I trust that because this town elects their BAA, elects that board to go through the process, that they got the right representation and the conclusion, at least at that level for that piece of it, was right. I also think I heard some good evidence from the tax assessor that the process that they initially went through was right. But if there's a postmortem and a debrief that can be done, I think the town should do it. But yeah.
Can we do that in public? That'd be great.
I mean, that's not up to us.
Town,
Not our
the
project.
taxpayers should be able to hear the process.
But you're saying it's something that's hard to find, right? You're saying there's a proprietary methodology.
Yeah, call them in and start asking them about.
That's true.
But you'd ostensibly have to have like, okay, the alternate, like the better
Nobody
method.
wants to talk about it.
No, you'd have to have the better method. It's like.
In fairness, day job brick coming down in here, like I deal with appraisals all the time. Every appraisal firm, that's proprietary. They're not gonna share that. So
And that's why it could be different from one appraisal company to the next.
wholeheartedly agree, but that doesn't mean the process is broken. So, yeah, Mr. Myers, and then.
Can I ask a question about the actual, like, review of the BAA's output? From year to year, and is there any involvement on Ross's part or anyone from Tyler who maybe has to have like a final say, or has to at least be able to say, we agree with your methodology? Are they given any like guidelines, or is it, because that to me, I hear what you're saying in terms of, from one BAA to another, you're gonna lose some consistency possibly. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily blaming the teacher, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you may just have had honor students one year, which would mean you had a better valuation. Or you have, C students, get Cs, and you had a not so good valuation.
Yeah.
So you can see where this room is going. We're either, Ross, I think, is blaming the teacher, and we're
I
questioning
don't think
the
anybody's
student.
blaming anybody.
Well, I mean, his first statement was that we thought this group was different in terms of how they approached it. I won't use the word he used, but
They were certainly under more political pressure. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean.
Or political or otherwise, they were under
This year.
pressure.
But the number.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a huge year.
Yeah, so.
For the.
Yeah, and I do want to, you raised an excellent point, and thank you. Like, we can discuss this, and this is a healthy discussion, and I do want to give you a chance to speak, Mr. Walsh, but this assessed value available for taxation is finalized. So we don't have control over changing that number, so it's not going to change any work that we do tonight. So, but I do want to give you a chance to make your point.
Well, I mean, when these numbers first came out, it was such a shock to everybody. It was 64, and then the commercials only got up 17. So therefore, there's a big shift of the tax burden onto the residential. I deal with appraisers in town. I asked them what they thought about it and whether they thought this was accurate. And I'll tell you, it's kind of scary because they told me to a person, there's 3 of them who do both commercial, a lot of commercial and residential, saying residential's way overstated and commercial's well understated. That's the scary part we're not even talking about. Because if that part of this revaluation is wrong, then that's putting a huge burden on the residential taxpayer.
And
That's
that's
why-
why to do with the BAA.
It has nothing to do with the BAA because they're not hearing this, but it scares the hell out of me that we're missing the other side of this.
But that was like, I think even other towns too.
Yeah, that's what I meant about Westport and Greenwich and other towns had similar results.
20 towns across Connecticut.
Hold on 1 second, I just want to follow the process.
Couple of
Yeah.
quick questions. Was the agency that did the reval the same 5 years ago?
No,
It's
different.
different.
And there was a lot of concerns 5 years ago too.
But it was the same one that did the other towns. So why do we expect that other towns would have a
So
different
then-
answer from us if it's the same one?
Did
that did it?
Tyler do the other towns?
Of course they did. There
So-
aren't that many that do it.
So then
They're from
my
Ohio.
question,
They do national.
Yeah.
Ross, can you tell us how the other
Do something
towns
local.
made out on their appeals? Do you have any data around that, or is it too early and maybe they're not done? I'm not sure what their process is.
I don't know the status of the other towns or how many appeals they had.
So maybe,
I'm assuming they're done.
yeah, so maybe we can just add that as a follow-up item.
Yeah,
Just
get that.
if you could gather some information from some of the surrounding towns that had similar shifts that Mr. Walsh referenced. Maybe other towns that used the same initial firm for the valuation that we did, Tyler. And just to understand their BAA results as well and see how that compares. That'd be helpful data points, I believe. Mr. Rock.
Ross, just a sort of a nuts and bolts question. I know that there were 957 total appeals. And then you heard,
876.
right, so 81 people, I guess, bailed out. Is that it?
No, there was close to 90 commercial appeals, which that were over $1 million that the board chose not to hear. That they're allowed to do that. And then there was a handful of withdrawals and duplicates that
And
made
so-
up the balance.
Tell me the difference between decisions made, okay, and granted in part. So, sorry, no. You granted 384, but then you granted in part 295. What's the difference between the granted and then granted in part?
Granted in full.
Yeah,
Well, granted in part
Understood.
is they did not get the full amount that they asked for.
So
they got
people
something
came in
less.
and asked for X and you gave 44% of them X, and then you gave 34% of people X minus whatever you decided.
Right.
Is that fair?
The
Okay.
BAA.
Okay, I just, nuts and bolts question. I just wanted to make very clear on that. Okay, thank you.
So, healthy discussion. Thank you for that. As noted, this number is not subject to change at our, within our purview or control. So this is what we're working with tonight. But why don't we go back to the presentation materials that our budget director was taking us through? And we can move on from Schedule B. I think Schedule C is basically a regurgitation. Or,
It is, it shows the comparison to fiscal 26.
And then I think Schedule D is one that we'll want to discuss as that talks about what's the right collection rate that we should assume.
Schedule D is the sensitivity of the reserve collection rate. Changes of 2 basis points, either up or down from a budget of 99.16.
So does anyone have any questions about Schedule D? Mr. Walsh?
So in regards to this, collection rate, this is what the square is what the number is in the numbers that you assume in here. Is that correct?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yes. Schedule C?
Yes, the 99.16, yes.
And that's also consistent with the 3-year average, which is what.
Yeah, 3-year average. What is the note mean and how would that affect anything? In the note in Schedule D at the bottom?
Oh, this does not take into consideration any of the additional state funding. That impact can be seen in Schedule E.
Okay.
So if you want to quickly look at Schedule E,
Yep.
scenario 1 is there's no recognition. So you get the 1924 mill rate or a tax rate increase of 2.3%. And then a 10% increment all the way to 100% of the $942,042 lowers the mill rate to 0.1919, 2.03% tax rate increase.
And we are going to, in regards to Schedule A, so to me, kind of Schedule A and Schedule D somewhat go along. Because we're looking at, you look at history, right, and taking a 3-year average. But if I notice, you guys have been getting a lot better job at collecting money. My suggestion is going to be that we do a 2-year average because they're getting so much better at it.
Yeah.
And if we do a 2-year average, the 2-year average would be 99.195, which I would suggest I like to just follow normal rounding rules. We would change that to 99.20. That's going to be my motion.
Okay. And that's fine. And we do have our tax collector still with us, so we can ask him for his input as well. But Mr. Myers.
No, I'll wait until we can ask.
Okay, all right. So
Are we on Schedule E still?
So basically, the two variables that we're talking about is the collection rate and how much of the extra 942,000 that we use. So because to keep the sensitivity from being, 3-dimensional, it was, we changed one or the other. Figure that out. But I think it's probably a good time to ask our tax collector, Mr. Klazuski. If we can take him off mute, that would be great. Great, thank you. So Mr. Klazuski, we've got in front of us a schedule of tax collection rates, the 5-year history going back to 2021. And in the past, we've used either a 4-year average or a 3-year average. In this case, it would be the same. Do you have any strong feelings about going to a 2-year average or considering something other than our prior practice?
So my only concern is in my almost 10 years as tax collector for the town, the increases that we're going to see on the residential side are, the highest increases I've seen in my 10 years here. So, a lot of what I see is that our collection rate follows, large trends. For example, when COVID happened and, the market was very favorable, we saw large increases in our collection rate. So now my concern is, it might be wise to be conservative just because with these large increases, there's a possibility that some don't pay their taxes right away because of the increase. And, so that's why I would recommend a 3 or 4-year average or 3-year average rather than the 2-year.
Yeah, Mr. Walsh.
David, this is Jim Walsh. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. And then you make some very good points. I appreciate that. My question, I guess, is on the residential side where they're going up the most, what percentage of the real estate taxes are paid by escrow companies that they collect from people?
Sure. It's about 45%.
Oh, it's lower than I thought.
Be higher.
Yeah. So it's, it's under 50%, but up near that range.
Okay.
Mr. Myers, did you have something?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, can you think of some like examples of, the people that aren't paying now, right? Because those are the ones that are driving this uncollectible rate. Think about how these increases to those people could drive the number up. It's not the normal people who are gonna suck this up and they're not going anywhere. They're gonna live in this town or somebody's gonna take the house and they'll pay it. So, I'm thinking about more of the people that might have to move, but even the people that have to move, they're gonna pay their taxes. So, I mean, it's more like somebody who's, living fixed income and isn't gonna pay. Like, tell us examples of those people that you have a hard time collecting from, who now it's gonna be a bigger group of people, right? Because it's more people affected by having to pay a bigger amount. So can you give us those examples? Because I'm a little hesitant I think this rate's gonna go down. I think the collection rate is gonna be impacted by this. But I don't know that. I'm asking you for your expertise.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it's very hard to predict. I haven't had an increase like this since my time here, but I'm trying to, categorize it in the same situation as when COVID happened and the market was booming and people were either refinancing, selling their houses. new people coming to town that were either, they were starting fresh and were caught up on their taxes and staying caught up. And then the rate went up but it took a large scale event like COVID and the change in the market for that to happen. So I'm trying to look at this in the same light of, okay, we have this large scale event. We have an increase that we haven't seen in 10 years. So my concern is you have a large scale change in the bills that we're issuing, and is that going to change payment? If it was a typical increase, then I would say, yes, let's, we're on the same path, and, let's do a 2-year average instead of 3-year average. But because of this large scale change in the amount due, my concern is that people may not prioritize, and not only the ones that are already behind, but even the ones that were caught up may grab their bill this year and look at it and see the large increase and say, well, geez, I can only pay 2 of the 4 quarters. I'll pay the others, the remaining the following year, just, or in increments, and try to get caught up. So that's my concern there.
Mr. Ellwanger.
Schedule D, am I reading this correctly? If we go from a 99.16 to a 99.2, it doesn't impact the mill rate?
Correct. So that's actually the point that I was kind of making next.
Still the same.
We're only voting on the mill rate tonight. We're not voting on the collection rate assumption. It's just that the collection rate assumption is something that we can use for our deliberation and our thought process. Because the mill rate is set to 4 digits, it doesn't carry out 5, 6, 7, 8. It literally has no impact on our conclusion tonight. Whether we assume 99.16, 18, or 20, the mill rate that we should be setting in any of those scenarios would be 1920, 1920.
So in light of that, I would argue keep it at 99.16. Although I would like to be more aggressive with it, but
yeah, it doesn't
that doesn't move the needle. And
conclusion. Yeah, Mr. Walsh.
If it doesn't change it, then why is the tax rate increase here listed with the collection rate going up? Why is it changed so drastically?
Well,
Can you explain why that is from 2.3, if you go down to 99.2, it goes down to 2.26%.
Right, but I think we're talking about apples to oranges here, because if you go back to the schedule, either Schedule C or B, either one, the way that the process or the math follows, if we have an expense budget that's partially offset by some non-tax revenue, the balance has to be our tax levy. And then we assume some assumption rate and then back into what do we have to charge in the form of a mill rate based on the assessed value. So that calculation of increase or decrease isn't any, maybe the header is mislabeled. It's not an increase in taxes. It's an increase in the gross tax levy required, but it's not changing the mill rate.
It's mislabeled, but it should be a little clearer.
Yeah, that's why we're talking. So
all we need to do is vote on the mill rate, and it seems like there's really only one number on this page that anybody would vote for. Is that-
on this one, but I think the other factor that we don't typically take into consideration, but I think it's a sizable number, is this extra $943,000 that we did not include in our budget that we're receiving from the state. That's Schedule E.
So we're gonna get 942.42 from the state?
Right.
Can I just ask before we move on to the next, I just
Sure.
have one more question to ask David. David, why, I think it's a great thing, so I'm just trying to figure out your magic here. In Schedule A, what has made you be able to keep increasing since 2020, really 23, but I will tell you, even 22 and 23, 3 years. What has made your collections, what has been the magic sauce for you to be able to get the collection rate so high?
Above 99.
Well above 99, like going 99, I mean, like.
Yeah,
why don't we
so
take that
again,
over?
it was really just the post-COVID housing market. It gave people an opportunity to either refinance or sell their home. There was a period where the first couple years after COVID, my office couldn't keep up. We were releasing so many liens because everyone was selling or refinancing and just starting over. And now, we have a lot of new residents in town that come in, they purchase a home and they're either escrowing or they're starting fresh and they're staying caught up.
Well, it seems like that's gonna continue. I mean, obviously, other than the rates coming down until this issue happened in Iran, rates were coming down and refinances were starting to happen. And the values have skyrocketed. That's why we're having such large revaluation numbers. So if somebody can't pay their taxes, I think they'll probably just sell their house. I mean, but most people and most mortgage companies rely on this, and banks for eternity pay their housing costs first. If they're gonna cut back, they just don't go on an extra vacation that year or cut back on other types of spending, discretionary spending in their households. So I don't see that really changing, but it just seems as though the number just keeps going up and up. I mean, I do understand your point though, and your concern. Those are valid concerns about, I guess we'll have to assess that next year.
Yeah, and you very well could be right. My concern just is I don't have any data to back up, okay, this type of increase. I can't recall a time, at least in my history, where we've had an increase like this, and I don't know what that means for the taxpayers. I don't know if that's gonna just be, they're gonna look at their bill and say, okay, I'm not happy with this increase, but I know I have to pay it, so I'll pay it anyways. Or if they, prioritize something else and hold off. And when I say hold off, I don't mean like they're just not gonna pay it. They could just say, well, I can only pay half of it this year. I'll pay the other half next year. And what we're looking at is the current year taxes. And if they don't pay their full taxes for the year and they hold off a little bit, then that's where I see, that cause for alarm and say, well, maybe we should be just a little conservative and see how they react to this year. And then we can, revisit next year.
David, I really appreciate your advice on this. Doing exactly what I think tax collectors should be telling us. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Mr. Rock.
David, can you, I think the number that surprised a lot of people on the board here was when you said that 44% of the property taxes were being paid out of escrow accounts through the mortgage company.
Yes.
Is that, I thought it would be, quite honestly, I thought it'd be a lot higher. I think maybe a lot of people thought it'd be a lot higher. Can you tell us, is that normal for, nationally? I mean, give us some background on that 44, just so we have some flavor on what that means, because I think that was a new number for us.
Yeah. I mean, it would be very tough for me to compare it because that, even though taxes are public record, what I would be able to, pull from other surrounding municipalities is which ones are escrowed and which ones are not. Because in reality, the way a tax bill looks publicly, you look up an address on any municipality's website, it's going to give you, the name of the owner, the property address, the assessed value. But if it's escrowed, it's assigned like a bank code in our system. And I don't necessarily think that's something that we can see publicly. So it would be hard for me to, I'd have to like reach out to my colleagues and poll them.
So I do have some insight that I can add there. Were you going to go on to a different?
No, I was going to follow up to that.
Yeah, so again, day job coming into the night job. It's fairly common in virtually all circumstances, a mortgage lender will require escrow when the mortgage is initially issued and funded. But when there's a refinance, if someone goes through a refinance process, if you've got the right credit rating, and depending on the value to loan ratio, many lenders will not require escrow. And I know that I haven't had escrow in my last 10 years of,
As long as
we
you
had a lot of refinances. So,
have 20% equity, they generally don't require an escrow.
yeah, Mr.
So
Martin.
I was gonna just ask David, what's been the trend of that percentage? If you go back like 10, 15, 20 years, has it always been 40% or is it coming down?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been around, hovering around that number, is what I've.
That's-
I suspect too that there are probably an increasing number of homes where there is no mortgage.
That's true.
Yeah, that's been the surprising that I've
Or
been seeing.
since COVID is
My
that-
real estate practice a little bit is I've never seen as many people, many of them coming in from New York City after COVID, because of COVID, coming in and either putting down a ton of money because they sold co-ops that were worth a lot of money in New York, or coming in just paying cash because they make so much money, had bonuses, and they just buy the McMansion for $2.3 million cash, and you're like, wow, it must be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that.
I guess they don't itemize.
They make too much money to itemize, they don't care.
So why don't we bring it back to the topic? I think Schedule E was what we were discussing, and that was how much of the additional 942,000 that was not budgeted, additional revenue from the state, should we take into consideration when we set the mill rate? And again, for simplicity's sake, this schedule, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, assumes that the 99.16 collection rate would apply. But as we walk down from using none of it to all of it, we're seeing the progression in gross tax levy required increase or decrease accordingly. So, who's on this?
What's the argument not to use all of
That's a great question, John.
Yeah.
it? Isn't that the issue?
I think we should go right there.
Yeah, come on.
That's the ultimate question. Thank you.
It's already guaranteed, correct?
Right.
So why would we
We're not
not?
lying, right?
No, like, why would you not use all of it? That's.
I know.
what's the
Look,
reason?
it's not budgeted, so we don't have to use all of it. I do think that the intent of this additional funds received was to reduce the burden on the taxpayer. I believe the first select person, you can speak for yourself, but I believe you're supportive of using it all, right?
Yes, as I have shared at a past meeting, I support using it.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be a long discussion, but this is meant to give us the information to make the decision.
My only counter argument would be on Schedule F. It looks like we need to fund the unassigned fund balance, and this could close that gap of the 1.8.
Because we did not budget for
We
this.
did not budget for, so that concerns me that we have that additional amount that's necessary. And my thought would be that this is a windfall. And I think it has a de minimis impact on, it may be a $2 difference in mortgage payment when you work all the numbers. So I'm inclined to use it all for the fund balance.
And Mr. Alwyn, you bring very good points. But I will say, I think that at least for the way the year's ending, we're being told by the police department that these cameras are expected to bring in the month of June. And I will tell you, every single number the police give us on this is the most conservative number I've ever seen, like conservative, almost criminally conservative. It's like that low.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if the number was $5 million. So if we bring in the 3.1, we'll have 1.1 to meet the budget number. We'd have $2 million more to go towards surplus, and we had Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, $1.25 million. You were estimating 1.3.
Don't we have to be careful how we use that money?
Yes.
Yeah.
That-
You would need, of the 1.3, you would need 600 to go in the fund balance this year. And in terms of the budget, I mean, we always budget be flat and have to figure out a way to make up the
Yeah.
contribution to fund.
So I just want to pause the conversation for a second for the people watching at home. What we're talking about now is that this board has a policy that we follow to make sure that for all intents and purposes, reserve balances for rainy day fund, it's used for our credit rating. We're about to go out to the bond market, that we do no harm to our reserve balances. And what that boils down to is making sure that we maintain, we as a town maintain our reserves at a certain percentage of our overall expenses year over year. Right now, our fund balance is at 11.76% of our expenditures, but as our budget for expenditures goes up, to maintain that 11.76% requires us to contribute more to that reserve. In an effort to try and keep taxes down, this board and none of the boards, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM, have budgeted anything to go into the reserve. So we are effectively taking a bit of a gamble. We've had a history of running surpluses, so I think everyone is comfortable that we have a path to fill that. But Mr. Elwanger's point is, it's an unidentified number. We have about 1.9 in total that needs to go to maintain the fund balance. This 900,000 would be about half of that. Mr. Stark, and then somebody on this, I'll come back to you.
Not only do you have the these projections to take into account, but you also have a pretty substantial increase in treasury rates. So our dividend income assumptions are probably also now too low.
Okay.
And I do not favor adding anything to fund balance. I don't think days get rainier just because the town's budget got bigger.
Fair enough. Okay.
Stark, great point about the treasury rates going up. Thank you.
Ms. Brigiero.
Just question regarding the money that we get from the ticketing. We can use that though for safety and different street initiatives, I believe. I thought even including paving, am I
Yes,
wrong?
it does.
So to the extent that we budgeted 3.2 million and then we get 5 million, I'm just making up some numbers. But that incremental money then could go against costs that we did budget that we wouldn't use, that would therefore kick off a surplus.
Yes.
That then could be at the end of the day used to help replenish a fund.
100%.
I
Wholeheartedly.
just want to make sure.
Yep. And that's good.
So when I,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when I, based on all this conversation, I say we go with the full 942,042.
Yes, great. Do we need to make a motion to vote on that, or how do we?
It's not a voting item. Both the collection rate and how much we use is just something to take into consideration. So if we were to take into consideration both for the Schedule E, the mill rate that we would settle in on would be 19 or 0.01919.
So that's taking the full 900, but what, and forgive me if I missed it, but last year for the tax number, we went to 99.01. Yes, 99.01. We're leaving that the same.
You're talking the collection rate?
Yes.
We're following the same past practice of using the 3-year running average, and that's 99.16.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we're using so we're taking it up to 99.16.
Yes, Mr. Walsh.
Is it just coincidence that on the night that we voted on the budget, as for the calculation of what the mill rate is based on our vote that night, it was 0.1919.
That's it?
It was exactly that number. Because when it came to us from the Board of Selectmen, I think the number was 1939.
Yeah.
So it was 1919. And it's just a coincidence that after getting this exact amount of money, 942,000 and change, plus the BAA changes, which worked against us, it worked out to be a wash.
Yeah.
I find it.
It was a lot of
I'm
things.
like, is that like the weirdest coincidence?
Unless someone had a mayonnaise jar on Funkin' Wagnall's porch, I don't know how else to explain it. So, okay, those who are too young will not get that reference. Okay, so we've gone through the analysis. If someone's comfortable making a motion on the mill rate, I'd love to hear it. So, Mr. Walsh.
I'll make a motion for the mill rate to be 1919.
Can I get a second on that? Mr. Elwanger, any other discussion on this? All in favor? Unanimous. Lady and gentlemen, thank you very much. That was a great discussion. And Ben, thank you for the analysis. Appreciate it. That was great. So that takes us to item number 6 on our agenda. To hear, consider and act upon a request from the CFO to transfer various fiscal year end 26 budgeted revenues between departments as set forth in Exhibit 1. This can be found online on page 16 of our online. So, Tom, do you want to take us through this?
Sure. The plan here is to, currently we have the ATSD revenue in the police department,
That's the speed cameras.
the speed cameras, correct? And the plan is to create a separate department, standalone department. And what we are requesting here is a transfer of the budgeted revenue for police to that newly created department for fiscal 26.
Okay, so yeah, these are two, items 6 and 7 on the agenda are the same, different fiscal year, but we'll take them separately. Does anyone have any questions on this matter? Bentley?
So for the new department, is it, it's not, it's totally separate?
It's outside, it's a town within the town. It's in the general fund. It's just a standalone department. This is a town safety issue and the police have requested that we remove it from the police department. It's not a
They don't wanna
revenue
be-
grab for the police department.
Right.
And is it
Town
gonna
safety.
be, is it who, like, who's gonna staff it?
It'll be under the direction of the police.
Okay, so this officer will be.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
It'll still be
Mr. Walsh and then
administered
Mr.
by the
Owen.
traffic division.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Still administered by the traffic division under the police department. So Captain Arizare and the parking department.
Yep, Mr. Walsh, and then I'll go to Mr. Owen.
It could stay the same and nothing would change, correct? Could stay exactly the same, right? Just the way we voted on it in the budget.
It would stay this, if you don't approve this, it will stay the same.
It's really like a public relations kind of thing because the police just don't want it in their budget.
Well, it's,
I mean, is that really what we're doing, a public relations, like creating budgets?
I mean, I guess the question, does it really matter?
Can you blame them?
let me.
Well, I mean, that becomes the question. Does it really matter? Just leave it
If you,
alone.
if you're gonna post it.
Well, can I speak to that? It's not, the police department, they're not able to use this revenue for police functions aside from any police expenses that are associated with the running of the program. It is a town safety initiative and the majority of expenses, we'll have to see how it plays out as we identify expenses and moving forward. If we're gonna have a separate expense and items to offset it, it most likely is going to be coming in town departments, which is why the request is coming to bring it outside of the police department.
Yeah.
There won't gonna be any confusion in terms of the majority of what this money is going to be spent for is not going to be.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the account itself the department, but the account, that's a new account as well, correct? There's not any other revenue.
No, that is the account, what is known as in Munis is the object that was created for this line item. And so it's just going to be moved out of the police department's line items and moved to a separate department.
So there's, by virtue of having a new account, that this revenue is segregated, but by putting it in a new department, it's a bit redundant, but it does separate it completely from the police department, correct, Mr. Myers?
So I fully support this. I think it makes great sense. Forget the PR reason or, but just, I think from an accounting standpoint, I think it makes great reason. My question is more about, the expenses that would go against it. Because that to me is even more important. So will there be, will the expenses that are able to be, go against these, will they stay where they are?
Yeah.
And then will they be transferred somehow or
So-
how are you?
First, we've got to identify what those projects are. We've had initial meetings to do that. The plan would be to, after we've identified the projects and activities, is to assign a code to those activities and then track them. And internally, there's no reason to transfer the expenses to that department, but for reporting to the state, we would capture the expenses and report it to the state.
So it's almost like a sub-accounting
Correct.
process that you'll need to go to for state purposes, but also for us to know whether that account is 70% or 100% or whatever. But, okay, and, okay, I mean, just one other thing, this is kind of a little off topic, but do you know how quickly we'll know, like, I know you hired a consultant, but do you know how quickly, because the town is really screaming, I think, right now, like, where's this money going? And I think the faster we can get out there with, this is what we're paying for, and this is why we're gonna save lives doing this, other than just when you're driving through a school zone, you know?
Well, I mean, I think that we're saving lives just for people slowing down. Just the difference between going 20 miles per hour and 40 miles per hour if you're in a
But people
crash.
don't always.
I know, but I'm just, but that, I
They're
just, but I
doing it
I just-
outside of the
but I
school
just want to
zone.
put that in terms of why we're doing this. We're doing this because it could be the difference of saving a life. In terms of the revenue, this, if the board votes to approve this, I think that's one step to show that it's going outside of, it's not used to police activities. And we'll have the conversation. It's in, the general fund and the opera we've budgeted for the last 2 years. And we'll have to see, ideally, the revenue will be going down as people are more compliant. And absolutely, this is a public forum in terms of safety initiatives, making our roads safer through paving, sidewalk improvements. Further discussion as we're talking about safe streets for all, a capital project. This board's made to elect in the future not to have it as part of the operating budget, but to have it replace bonding potentially, a project that we would bond in the future. You
So-
would really have to see how it plays
So
out.
maybe in
to see how it
September, when we
goes.
do the capital projects, we can see a list of things, because there's a lot of money coming in
Yeah.
that we can do a lot of things with. And I just feel like I remember being on the RTM when this was first proposed by Gerber, the only reason why people didn't vote for it was because there was no plan. And 3 years later, there's still no, like, we get the goal, but we don't get the specifics as to what we're doing with the money. So I think it would be very helpful for the citizens of this town to really understand that, this is what we're spending it on.
Mr. Walsh and then Ms. Ruggiero.
So, Tom, are we gonna be moving over, like, the chief said it was gonna take 2 police officers to review the tickets. So that's 2 salaries, benefits, whatever. Are we moving that over into the expense budget for this? Because I thought we'd get a whole presentation on what the expense revenue, what the expense costs we're gonna.
I don't know what the resource requirements are, but there's no plan right now to move the expense over. The plan is to leave the expense in the operating department and capture that within that department. And again, we would be able to code those expenses and do a report that shows what the revenues are and the related expenses are when we report to the state.
I think there's gotta be an expense side to this. I mean, I just do.
There is an expense side to it, but the question,
Budget.
and again, we may get to a point where we have in that department, but right now, to the extent you've got people in a department that's doing part-time for ATSD and part-time for your normal role, then you're allocating costs. And the question is, where do those costs be, where should they be placed?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Ruggiero.
I agree, moving it to a separate budget makes good sense. Is the expenses for the 2 officers that might be dedicated to that, is that, money allowed to be covered by the money?
Yes.
So then that would be part of the offsets, because my concern would be if we start moving money out of budgets, we're gonna build cliffs in the budget. And I'd be worried that we're doing that.
Before we start moving expenses, we need to identify.
Yeah, so I would leave them in the budget they are and just show how they got funded through this and leave it here.
First select person, did you have a comment?
Well, and while uniformed police officers were reviewing in the first month, the chief can designate other town employees. It doesn't need to be a uniformed police officer reviewing the footage. And the plan is actually not to have a uniformed police officer. Part of the reason why we went through these speed cameras was to free up our officers' time to be working on other public safety initiatives and to be working on traffic enforcement in other parts of Fairfield. To get it started in May, the police, there were officers reviewing it, but long-term, that's not the plan, not the best use of resource of our police officers.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, it's interesting because the state, when they're looking at putting them on the highway, one of the big arguments was we want the police officers on the road, not just for speed enforcement to save lives for speeding, horrible accidents that happen all over our highways. But we want that same police officer to be available if a child is abducted, if someone breaks down on the road to provide them safety, whatever. And, I guess the question is whether that can be done now. I mean, I just asked Mr. Rock a question. I know you were one of the architects, David, about this speed camera ordinance on the RTM. You were a co-sponsor of this. Did you guys talk about this, like how this would operationally work for on the RTM?
I'd have to go to my notes, Jim.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to answer that.
Okay, did you guys talk about that it would be, that these speed cameras would be operated 24/7? Like even outside of school hours, even at 2 o'clock in the morning? Did you guys talk about that?
Again, I'd have to go to my notes.
All right, if you could report back, that'd be great, because I looked at the minutes and I didn't see conversation about any of this stuff. So, and now all of a sudden it's like 24/7, 365 for school safety. And, there's obviously some angst out there that's, even Channel 12 today, I see reporting on it now.
Hold up, work.
Yeah, Mr. Vitale?
I've read so much on social media and WB have commented a million times too. I've said to people out there that if you simply stay at 30 miles per hour, no matter what time of day it is, you're never gonna get a ticket. And I don't think that's a big ask of our residents. Now, some people claim on Facebook that, no, I got a warning when it was 25 miles an hour, I was going 27, I got a warning. I know the chief insists that that's not the case and that's not gonna happen. So to the extent that that did happen, I hope that could be clarified. I tend to think that maybe some people on Facebook are not being as forthcoming as perhaps they should be. But I do think, and I think the administration and all of us should, let's see how this plays out in the next few months. I think, we may have to we're not going to do it, but the town bodies may have to make some adjustments to this. I think there's been some really good arguments that the signage isn't sufficient.
Well, but I also think the administration has heard that.
They have,
and so
absolutely.
I
That's my
give you
point.
credit
So
for that.
That's the
Yeah, and some of the signage, and the chief has reported out,
state law.
it's just state law
Yeah.
of where it has to be,
Yeah.
where the signs have to be
Right,
posted.
but
We
when you
talked
have
about.
limbs laying and fruit coming down.
Sometimes that
the
flash
DPW,
and-
And
we address that.
DPW was
So I
Yeah.
just,
trees and.
I actually think that in a couple months, the drastically
Oh,
down.
they already have.
They have, so.
Between May, we got I don't have it
Yeah.
with me.
So, Ms. Ruggiero.
What I was gonna say is, I think it would be very helpful to have flashers. Because I saw the thing about the trees and taking, but I passed 3 zones today. And, I'm putting along real slow, going to the office. And I got, let's say this nicely, the non-informed person behind me on my bunch, like, really fired up. And I think the flashers would be very helpful to wake up, buddy. Because the flashers, like, even for myself, I almost put a sticky in my door, like, on my steering wheel, like, be careful, it's effective tomorrow.
The flashers require electricity. Isn't that part of the?
I just passed through New Canaan High School because I had an accident and they have solar panels on top of the ones in New Canaan.
And
Big
Westport has
solar panels right at the top of it. It flashes all day long.
Well,
You know what the point is. It's just. you gotta
I mean,
keep
we're
looking.
looking at it. Sometimes the solar doesn't necessarily work. If it's rain, there's no sun for a week or if there's shade, sometimes they're gonna work. There's some concern about it doesn't work, then you do not inform drivers if they're looking for their speed.
Right, like it's
you know,
only active when state law for the new work zones on the highway, it's only active when those flashers are on. So if the flashers are not on, the work zone is not active and therefore.
So this would have to run 24/7.
Yeah,
Well,
so.
you would have to run 24/7, concerns about in certain areas, you're having this flashing light on somebody's front lawn. So conversations that are still happening, if you want it not to be solar, then you're gonna have to run electric. Back of the envelope from DPW was $15,000 for hardwiring it per
Pro
sign.
sign.
So that would be 30,000 roughly
school.
per school.
Would that be, but you could, out of the revenue.
You could use that money for,
Yeah, but I do think that it would be, because I went by the signs and, there's the sign, it's the white sign, school zone, with the camera, but like, there's no real pop. I'm well informed about the topic, but the person behind me is probably like, what is this person dying? They probably think I'm texting or something. I mean, the car's like,
We were like 7,500 for May 1st and we were down to 1,700 for June 1st. I mean, a significant reduction just.
I think that's what we're trying to drive.
This is what,
Yeah.
between the warnings, the social media, the press, and people just.
Mr. Walsh.
I will tell you that I thought I was alone in this, but I'm reading about it, but I will tell you going through these and I've been lucky enough that I've been following it. As Ruggiero said, I have people beeping at me, wanting to pass me, holding up 8 cars in a row behind me.
Finger.
But I will tell you that going through these zones, which I have been following, I am looking at my speedometer 8 to 15 times. I counted, okay,
Yeah.
to make sure, because you know how hard it is to drive 20 miles an hour?
Yeah.
If everyone's doing that, it's gonna be, we say it's all for safety.
Yeah.
But if some kid gets run over with a 20 mile an hour and they're going 20 miles an hour because of distracted driving, it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a serious problem. I asked the chief about it. He goes, I understand your point.
Yeah.
Like, he understands it because it's hard to drive 20 miles an hour.
Go 27, you'll be fine still.
Yeah.
I asked him what the thing is. I'm not allowed to tell you what will go over. I don't know where it's 5 miles over. I'm
Oh,
like,
you
is it 5,
can't, you
10
can't
miles?
go 30, by the way. You could do 29,
How do you know that?
because I spoke to somebody.
And we were told.
Yeah, it's an X.
Mile
It's
per
10,
hour.
the ordinance is
50
10.
meetings, right?
I was told that I could do, they're giving you 9 miles per hour flexibility, and then I could share that with people that are screaming.
It's 10.
And I think calibration for 1 mile an hour is probably making 9 safe. I've heard 10, but it's.
We can do the 10, I'm just telling you.
I want to bring it back to our topic.
Let's get the vote on it.
Let's
So-
vote on this.
What I think is relevant to this board is, and I can't remember, Tom, if we talked about this in our quarterly meeting or if we talked about this as a follow-up, but I've asked Tom and his department to put together a report that will be presented to this board every quarter meeting that will show revenues collected and qualifying eligible expenses. And we need to make sure that we're keeping track of that, because that's gonna be the report that's gonna go to the state, but it also informs us to make sure that we're spending the money appropriately. So, okay, so the item in front of us is to move, do a budget transfer for fiscal year 26. That's the 1.1 million. Can I get a motion to, move forward with the request? Ms. Ruggiero, a second from Mr. Myers. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Okay.
No, I'm voting against.
And then that takes us,
No, it's better to-
oh, you're voting against. I'm sorry. So 8 to
No
1.
expense budget, I'm voting against.
Okay, so 8 to 1. Okay, so the next item in front of us is, hear and consider basically the same thing for fiscal year 27.
Correct.
Which is the 2.9 million that we budgeted earlier this year. So any further discussion on this topic? Can I get a motion to approve from Mr. Penley, second from Mr. Myers? All in favor? Any opposed?
No expense budget, I'm voting against.
Okay, fair enough. 8 to 1. Okay, so that takes us to item number 8 on the agenda, secure committee updates. We've had some committees meet, some that have not met, but I just want to, just for the benefit of the public and for those in the room, I want to hear from the various committees. So the audit committee, do you want to let us know what's going on?
Yeah, not much.
Have you guys met?
We had a meeting, very short one last Wednesday. It's their first one, and the reason why it really was our first meeting was because the audit was late, so there was really nothing to discuss. And we lost our internal auditor. We haven't replaced them. So what we did is elected officers, I'm the chair, Mr. Walsh, who wasn't at that meeting, but basically said he'd be the vice chair. He's the vice chair, Mr. Rock's the secretary. And we just had Harris was there. We just had a general discussion with Mr. Harris about our concerns with respect to the upcoming audit and what the administration's doing to prevent any delay. Chance that we don't get a comptroller hired, and Mr. Harris assured us that things will be better this year. He's very optimistic that we're gonna have that position filled not too distant future, but, and of course, if we don't hire someone for that position, that they're better, positioned this year to get the information to Joe Senafani so he can start his work. We also chose 2 dates, and I don't have them with me, but we're gonna meet again in a September date, and I think at like late November, because we should know more about the audit then. Generally, historically, we would get a draft audit December, early January, then the audit committee would get it. It's finalized. That really was it.
Mr. Walsh?
And John, just, I wasn't able to be at the meeting.
Oh, I know, yeah.
I presume that if we do hire an internal auditor, and that's, I guess, a big if, and then there's audits ready to review, we would schedule a special meeting or something.
Absolutely, yeah, we can
to
do
review
special
that
meetings
prior-
whenever.
Yeah, prior to the.
It would, kind of thinking, I'll check with Tom over the next few weeks that it's more likely that even when we have our September meeting, I'm not sure we're gonna have any internal audits.
I understand, but if
Something happens, I'll
something
let you
happens, yeah.
And I think I also commented, Jim, on your desire, I think you expressed this at our last meeting. It might be a good idea to have our internal auditor take a look at ACOM and what's doing what we want it to do. So hopefully we'll get an internal auditor sometime soon.
Do we have an update on any candidates, or where's that?
We have viable candidates for the controller position. The focus is on filling that position and then focus on the internal audit.
Yeah,
And-
that's the most important one.
Yeah, agree. Agree.
That's
Okay.
it.
Any questions for John or comments? Mr. Rock?
I was just gonna update on the SDTR.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so we'll move on to senior and disabled tax relief.
So we had a joint meeting of EOF and the RTM on the 28th. And really, the reason why we did that was to give Ross a break. If he could address both the RTM and the BOF at the same time, the same room, just easier for him. It was a discussion, no votes were taken. It was really just, what are the numbers? What are we doing? How do we get our arms around this thing? And we put a timeline together. We meet on June 17th. We should have some numbers now that the BAA is done. Should have numbers this coming week. And so we'll dive in a little bit more. We're going to have another joint meeting again to sort of discern what's happening. And really everything's on the table. Bob was there. Jim was on the phone. And then there was Sharon Pastilli from the RTM, Jen Hiawatha, and
Laura Carlson
Laura Carson's there.
and
as well.
Peter Britt.
And Peter Britton.
Is Sharon Pastilli not on the board?
Sharon Pastilli is the chair of the RTM for SDTR.
Oh, good. Okay.
So it was great. It was a great meeting. It was a good first meeting. We've got a lot of work to do. And if we're going to get something to the RTM and to this board, we've got to move quickly. So Ross is really kind of pushing us to do something. Last time he came
And for the public's benefit, because of the timing of our, when this board is formed and the subcommittee is formed, there was no action that could be taken in time for the fiscal year 27 budget, which is pretty much the first thing we attack, right? But the expectation is that you'll come back to this board and the RTM will do the same with their full RTM with recommendations for possible changes for the following year.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm level QTA QTA8AR, I believe. Is that what it is? The acronym? Yes, but that's what we're gonna do.
Right. Well, thank you. And you've got subsequent meetings scheduled or?
June 17th.
Okay, perfect. You said that. Thank you. Purchasing, Mr. Finley?
Purchasing, we met 3 times, Craig, Jim Myers and me. We've pretty much concluded the work. Tried to disband it at the last meeting. Craig wouldn't let me. But what we did is we put together, we went through the policy, we put together some suggested edits to it and some questions. We met with Adam Tulin, who's the purchasing director. And we discussed all those changes. He's gonna now incorporate them. And he's probably done actually, so I think maybe whenever you're ready, you can have him come here and he can put the policy, I guess, for the board to vote on, to approve it.
Yes, I think that would be the next step. And then one of the other takeaways, and correct me if I mischaracterized, Jane, was that we're gonna get some reporting from him on a quarterly basis as well. And I think we're gonna start that at our next quarterly, which is in September.
Yeah, so the current purchasing policy as written says that purchasing director shall report to the Board of Finance quarterly as required by the town charter. But the town charter does not seem to require that. But we determined that we should still probably hear from the purchasing director. So we've done that in the past. Just hearing, bid exceptions and things like that is probably something we shouldn't lose sight of.
We'll have that. I'll make sure that's on the agenda. Remind me, please, for.
Yeah, I haven't followed up with that, but I'm presumably.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then the budget committee, I think this was meant to be kind of a post-mortem as well, but have you guys talked about potential dates for that?
We have a meeting, our first meeting is June 10th.
Okay.
It'll be an organizational meeting. And hopefully you can sit in on that, and we'll identify opportunities for improvements, what's working well, what isn't. If you have any input you'd like to present to Kevin, Mr. Ruggiero, myself, let us know ahead of time. And we may have one other meeting, but we'll decide that at that time.
And I think we all.
Any enhancements would be for the next budget cycle, obviously.
Just one big budget.
I do think that everyone here probably has some thoughts on what worked well or what didn't work well, what would be differently, what we'd like to see done again. So if you do have those thoughts, share them with Kevin and Bob.
It would be definitely very helpful to get those and, get a mind dump on what you guys are thinking and capture all that. I have a feeling I'm semi-opinionated, so I'll have some thoughts and Bob and Kevin, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'll just share a couple of thoughts from my perspective, here. I put together the budget schedule, and basically tried to repeat all the big departments that we had. But if you guys have ideas about other ways that, obviously, we're gonna want to hear from DPW and police. Those are the big guys, right? But if there are other groups or departments that we want to include, and maybe we wait until we see the budget book and then, save space for 3 or 4 departments that we add at the end. That type of thing. I'd love for you guys to talk about that, see if we can modify our scheduling piece of it. And then the second thing for me is I actually want to push to see if we can go back to what you guys haven't experienced before. But what we've done the last couple of years is we've had an editable PDF file of our budget book. We click on that and we submit questions to page 97 or whatever it might be. To me, that did not work as well or as efficiently as what we've done in years past, which was simply to use a shared spreadsheet on a shared drive that we had access to, because that would allow us to see what other questions people submitted. Like I submitted a question and it went into a black box, and then you guys must have gone crazy because you might have got the same question from 8 of us, right? And I think if I had the ability to look at the shared spreadsheet and see, oh, somebody already asked a question about the revenue on page 97.
And that's what the Board of Ed does that.
Right?
Yeah, they have
Yeah,
a shared doc.
but since I've been on this board either. I mean, that must be, 3 years back.
I remember there was like a link on it.
No, I mean, we had the file that the shared Google.
Yeah, that I'd like to go back to, the shared spreadsheet.
Oh,
The
that's a
Google Doc.
spreadsheet.
Yeah, because that I think worked better than what we've had the
Yeah,
last
that we had,
Couple years.
couple years ago.
2 years ago,
Yeah,
when Frank was here.
yes.
Yes.
So, yes.
Love that. Got that started Board of Ed. That's my,
That's your baby?
That's my baby.
I love it. Okay, well, it worked well and we did, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We borrow what works.
You know what, that
All of
means
best practice.
definitely makes it easier reviewing the budget.
Yeah, so, okay, well, that takes us through the committee. I didn't forget one.
I think so.
All right, so the next thing is to, item number 9, to hear, consider and appoint the clerk and assistant clerk of the Board of Finance for the next year ending May 2027. Any volunteers?
Should my agent speak?
Um.
I nominate Tom Harris to be our clerk and for Jen Carpenter to be our assistant clerk.
Second. Second, by
You in the role.
Mr. Rolla. Any further discussion on the matter? All in favor? Perfect. You're hired.
Who was the second? Sorry.
Mr. Matola. Thank you. And then the, next is to hear, consider and act upon draft minutes, from May 7th, 2026. This is available online, starting on page 17. I believe, Shane, you were absent from that meeting, so you will abstain. But did anyone else have any, comments or changes?
Yes. I was gonna make a sarcastic note, but I was trying to not. I didn't want to be rude to Tom. It's not Rogerio.
No, but I thought you were absent at that meeting. May 7th? You were absent at one of them.
I was absent the following one. I
Gotcha.
The quarterly meeting, May 19th.
Not
I had an appreciation for the name Ruggiero.
They spelled it right.
I was amongst my, there's a lot of Ruggerios. There really are.
There are.
Very common name too. That's not mine.
Okay, so not hearing any, comments, can I get a motion to accept the minutes as presented? Ms. Ruggiero? No, Ruggiero.
Ruggiero,
Ruggiero.
with attitude.
Three syllables.
Ruggiero.
Ruggiero. 3 syllables, Ruggiero. Second by Mr. Myers, 2 syllables. Okay.
You did a great job saying my name. You botch it up every time.
Right.
You said it.
All in favor? Now, Mr. Penley, 8-0. Perfect, thank you. Here, consider.
I have a point of information.
Yeah.
And this is something, Craig, you and I spoke about earlier, that I was gonna make a motion.
Sure.
Now, the time you want it made, or you want to do it after communication?
Let's do it after communications.
Not a problem. I just want to do whatever your.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate that. Any communications to speak of? I don't believe so. No. Okay, so that before we get to item number 12 to
Can I
adjourn.
ask a question?
Yeah.
We got that question from the public about the next meeting,
Oh,
about whether they're.
yeah,
Public comment, I'll let you.
yeah. Yes, so,
Sorry.
want to raise your question or, yeah, or add something for discussion?
Yeah, so I want to raise an issue that I spoke to our chairman about.
Yeah.
And that being, at the last meeting, we had set a special meeting for June 11th.
Right.
And he advised me today that we were no longer going to have that meeting. And so based on that, so that, I know certain people want to follow Robert's rules more strictly, and to be quite honest with you, I'll follow Robert's rules as strictly as you want. I mean, it's just gonna slow everything down.
Why don't you,
But I'm gonna make a motion.
Yep.
It does need, just so you know, adding something to our agenda requires a 2/3 majority, so I just want to be open and honest about that.
Yep.
So my motion is to hear, consider, and act upon and confirm scheduling of a special meeting on June 11, 2026. That was scheduled at the Board of Finance meeting of May 19th, 2026, which was our quarterly meeting. That's my motion.
can I get a second on that? Mr. Myers? Okay. All in favor of approving the motion to add it to the agenda and we can discuss it? Okay. 8, any opposed? 8-1, okay.
There's 2.
So we've added an item.
2 against.
Oh, there's 2 against?
Mr. Elwood.
Just one.
No, he
Sorry, Mr. Rock, I thought I saw you.
No, you-
So yeah, let's discuss it. So, do you want to set the table or you want me to just respond to the motion?
Well, I thought we had left here and we had a meeting scheduled for June 11th, and then you advised me that you had some conversation on behalf of our board.
Yep.
With the first select woman.
Yep.
And, get the gentleman's name,
Corsillo, who's the chair.
Priscilla, who's the chair of the
and Emmeline, head of TBZ.
Yeah, and from what you and I had spoken about even last week.
Yeah.
Was that Emmeline confirmed that she was gonna come,
He was available.
that Mark Barnhart had not confirmed that he was not gonna come. Matter of fact, I've heard from town employees that he said he would absolutely not come to our meeting and was not gonna come to another meeting about this, about this issue. Because he had spoken about it at TPZ. I found insulting to our board if we were
Well,
requesting.
I haven't heard
to be
that.
there.
That's hearsay, so I think we have to be careful about that.
And you advised me today that after speaking with those two people, that you were not gonna hold this meeting.
Yeah, three people. It was Emmeline, Tom, and Ms. Vitale.
I'm like, oh, Emmeline was at that meeting as well?
She wasn't at the meeting. I spoke to them individually.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so I guess, why don't you explain why? we're not
So-
at the meeting? I thought we had made all good points on why we should have a meeting.
correct. And if you go back and watch our meeting, I actually went back and watched it a couple of times as well. One of the things that I had mentioned a couple of times was I wasn't sure what the agenda item would be. I'd be open to having a special meeting. Wasn't sure what the agenda item is. What we boiled it down to is making sure that this was relevant for a Board of Finance discussion. So did it potentially have a revenue or expense impact on the town?
Yes.
So, and then I don't think this is a Board of Finance issue, but the other discussion point was this looming deadline of July 1st as a potential date and a deadline of some sort. Again, I'm not sure that it's a Board of Finance issue, but I spoke to our first select person. I spoke to the chair of the TPZ. I spoke to the head of the TPZ department. And based on those discussions, there are no plans to obligate the town in any way to incur any meaningful or substantive capital expense. We talked a little bit about possible parking garages or buying land or some other thing. But there's no plan or discussion to. And in terms of the discussion point on the July 1st date, again, I'm not sure that's a Board of Finance issue, but as it was explained to me, the state is requiring that all municipalities comply with state law and regulation on this matter by July 1st. The town has been in compliance since the beginning of the year. And so there's no deadline that would apply to the town. Now, having said that, the piece of this, the piece that the TPD is discussing and considering, and in fact, I believe they had a meeting tonight where this was on their agenda, was the possibility of adding these parking mitigation zones. That it does not have a July 1st deadline. Right now, the town is exposed and is at risk for a developer coming in and submitting a plan that would meet state statute, but not require any parking. There's no magic about July 1st. That risk exists today. But it also existed during 830G as well. So there's nothing new about this. And there's no deadline of July 1st for identifying these parking mitigation zones. They can be identified at a later date as well. So it's at whatever pace the TBZ members want to take, propose these mitigation zones. And my understanding is that one or two members put something on the agenda and it's being discussed tonight. Where that goes is up to them. But in terms of bringing it back to Board of Finance, there's no plan to obligate the town to spend any money, capital or otherwise, of any substantive amount that would make it something that the Board of Finance should discuss. So based on all of that, I felt that it was not appropriate to schedule a special meeting. We did discuss scheduling it. We compared calendars, but I held off on speaking to the town clerk about adding it to the actual schedule until I had those conversations. And then having had them, I'm letting this board know, as a courtesy, I called you earlier today, Jim, but there's no reason that would warrant a special meeting. So I'm choosing not to schedule one.
Well, I disagree on a couple of levels. Number one, we did all sit here and schedule that date. We all checked our schedule. Hold on,
Fair enough.
let you finish.
Fair enough. Yep.
Let you finish.
I appreciate that.
We all sat here with our calendars, specifically working around your calendar as well and others to schedule, to find a date and schedule. Therefore, this body on May 19th had scheduled that meeting.
I disagree.
And we told who we'd want to know about that meeting and be invited to it.
Yep.
And I think it was the next day or the day after, you sent them an invitation based on our meeting on May 19th. For telling them that there was going to be a special meeting. So there was really a scheduled meeting that we had agreed to on May 19th.
Well, I mean.
They agreed to.
Well, look, now we're gonna get technical here. Like, the meeting's not scheduled until it's filed with the town clerk. What we talked about was the possibility of scheduling a meeting. We found dates that would work for us, but if none of the people that we wanted to talk to were available on the 11th, but it did have a Board of Finance component that was worthy of discussing, we would have found another date that would have worked for people. So there was nothing that was scheduled with the town clerk for June 11th. That was the date that we were targeting, but it was not scheduled. So when you say that we scheduled it, that's an incorrect statement.
All right. Well, you told town officials you wanted them there on June 11th.
As I indicated at our last meeting, after the meeting, the next morning, I sent an email to Tom Corsillo, Mark Barnhart, and Emmeline, and asked them, I let them know that this topic came up, that we were targeting June 11th as a date to have a special meeting. I invited them to watch the last 20 minutes of our previous meeting the night before, so they could get a flavor for what we were discussing. But I also said that I would follow up with them in advance of that to get their perspective on whether this was truly a Board of Finance related issue or not. Now, I did not hear back from Mr. Barnhart, so I don't know his feelings about this. I did not speak with him at all. I did speak with the chair, Mr. Corsillo, and he let me know that he confirmed that the July 1st date was not a real date, and that's just misinformation that's being spread around primarily through social media, but it's a misunderstanding. There's no date.
You still haven't heard from Mr. Barnhart, right?
Not on this matter. And
What do you say about that, Madam First Selectwoman? Chairman of a Board of Finance asked him to come to a meeting, and to this day, after more than a week and a half, he doesn't respond.
I will have to.
Is that the way you expect a town department head to handle a matter?
I will have to follow up with him. I did want, for that date, I did have a conversation with Mr. Barnhart as well, that I was not available that day, June 11th. We're having a hate crimes presentation in Fairfield. If town department heads are coming to present to this board, I would like to be present with them.
Okay.
So maybe he just did not respond. I would ask if there's specific questions. The July 1st deadline, I know that was of concern at the quarterly. I think that's been addressed. Question came up about this parking, a two-story parking garage. That is not, there is no plans for that at this time. So that, I can tell you right now as first select person, that there's no plan being put forward for a parking garage. And if that's something that the other town boards that we think there's a need for, it would be a part of a conversation at our capital planning workshop. We are, as I shared last time, internally talking about doing a parking study downtown, just based on some of the concerns raised here, and following up on conversations we've been having internally for, we hear people like there's no place to park. There's data that's showing we actually have a lot of parking spaces, so it might be a problem of wayfinding. MetroCog has some information on that we're going to use them as a starting point to get that data. And if we need to bring an outside consultant to do a full range parking study, we will do that, because we obviously want to make sure that our businesses have adequate parking, but we also don't want to hamper potential growth down in that area as well. And if there's specific questions in terms of economic impact for or against, I would just ask this board through the chair to submit those questions so we could share them with the proper department heads. So they come to this meeting with the information that you need. And we're not just coming here and it's somewhat of a free-for-all. It's not fair to them, not fair to you, everybody's time.
You know, it's not fair to the merchants downtown, because I've talked to about 15 different businesses, knowing this meeting was coming up
Well,
and asking them to come to our meeting. And
But it's not.
I asked them, have you heard from our economic development chief?
Go to the TP.
Have you been asked by Mr. Barnhart as Director of Economic and Community Development, has he come and talked to you about this, and how do you feel about this? You know what everyone said? I've not heard one person say yes to that question. So I'm shocked that something that could impact the downtown so severely, that our Economic and Community Development Director would not get a pulse of how the downtown merchants in this town who are driving the business, whose business drives commercial taxes.
We don't know who we've spoken with. I mean, I think in.
Well, that would have been nice to have them here, you know, and
well, if that is the question,
I think it is. You're allowing two of your department heads, Emmeline as Town Planning and Zoning Director, and Mr. Barnard as Director of Community and Economic Development, to represent in public meetings when this issue comes up. What are we going to do about parking? If somebody puts up all the downtown buildings, puts another story on, it allows there to be up to 15 units or less, no parking. What are you going to do? What their answer is, both of them at public meetings have said, oh, we'll just have to build parking garages. That's what has been said. Those department heads are representing that. And if that's not the position that you want them to take, they are lying about that fact. They're not being honest. So that's why we wanted them here. It will have an economic effect.
and I'm not saying that we cannot come here. If there are specific issues and questions, I just ask that you forward them so we can have a robust discussion about this. And come with data. Mr. Barnhart has spoken to him about this. He is in contact with our downtown businesses daily.
Guess I'll just run my own survey and I'll ask him.
And I think that, have you reached out to him directly as well? I'm just being that I don't know who, I don't know.
I haven't heard from him.
I don't know who you've spoken to.
Yeah. I've not spoken to him. And I'm hearing that he's telling town employees he's not coming to our meeting.
I can't speak to that. And I don't know, town employees, would want.
So it has what I'm saying is has an economic effect. And building parking garages, if that's what Emmeline and Mr. Barnhart are saying, we could ask them those questions.
Well, I haven't spoken to Mr. Barnhart, but I did speak to Emmeline and she confirmed that there's no plan. She's not recommending a parking garage. That's not.
Where are people going to park based on what she's done?
That's not a Board of Finance issue.
Do you think that
Parking garages are, there's no parking.
Right, but she's not recommending a parking garage.
You did say it in public meeting. What are you talking about, Craig? She said it at TPZ. Do you want me to pull the transcript?
That might be helpful.
Okay, all right. I'll pull the transcript. If that's the case, you're not going to have the meeting.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question
please.
through you to Mr. Walsh? Do you feel like there's a parking issue right now?
Yes. Have you gone around the merchants downtown and asked them what they think?
I'm asking just.
Yes. Right now.
Right now, without
Right now.
any additional residential or anything.
Yes.
So what do you think we should do about it?
There's not much we can really do. I'm not in supporting of taking over Sherman Green and putting a 6-story parking garage. I'm not in favor of spending tens of millions of dollars double decking both sides of the Metro North Station to put an extra deck for public parking.
But if it's supporting our downtown economic development in our downtown, if we think right now that we have a parking problem, and if you ran the numbers of, and I'm not advocating for, adding a garage right now, but should we be running the numbers to see if we did add a garage, what positive economic impact that might have to our downtown businesses?
I thought you raised some good issues the last time when we talked about this, where you said you're gonna look at diagonal parking for what we have now. What I don't see happening is, and what I'm fearful of, and Craig, you raised this earlier, but they're not, if they don't do something by July first, someone can come in with an application.
They can do it now.
That's correct. There's nothing magical about July first.
But they need parking.
I
They need to show parking.
I understand.
After July first, they don't, if it's 15 units or less, you need 0 parking. There's nothing the town can do about it. So for example, one of the properties I'm concerned about, and I know, I have heard that developer's waiting for July first, waiting to see us.
I
The
understand.
owner of the Rite Aid property. That property is sitting there. There's no Rite Aid there. It's been purchased, and something's gonna happen there. And there's gonna be a residential component. Now you don't need any parking anymore. You don't need any parking. You could have 15 units, you could have 2 professionals or unprofessional. You could have two people of any people live in a single family, in a 1-bedroom unit, each having their own vehicle to go to their jobs, wherever that may be. And there's 30 cars that are on our streets. And there are cars that'll be there parking during the day, parking during the night, because they're inside, they've worked a hard day, they've had dinner, and they're just sitting there taking up parking spots right on Post Road.
One of the items that, the department head for TPZ, Emmeline, had indicated was that, we got 12, and I'm doing this from memory because I don't have my notebook, but I believe we had 12, 830G applications, that came through. None of them were required to provide parking by 830G standards.
Mhm.
All of them provided parking because there were other constraints that were not in state statute. But the point is, like, there were other developers who had the ability to submit a plan without parking, and none of them did.
So what,
The market drives that.
what's the problem then? Greg, I don't understand. So that's the case. They could do it under 830G. What's the problem with protecting and having a parking mitigation
Well,
thing?
I have no issue with
it's on their
protecting it.
agenda.
I think
mean,
the
I think-
TPZ should deliberate that.
thought-
I actually am
thought
in
they had
favor of.
Zones already mapped out and they're talking
I
about it
thought
tonight.
that was on the
Right?
agenda
I mean,
tonight.
they are
We've been
just,
talking about it for months or sometimes not even talking about it.
well, they're
Maybe
just.
this will all be moot in a week or so. I mean, park
Might be
mitigations.
moved right now.
Well,
I thought the reason is, I think it's all economic. That's why I thought. Get it. For 2 reasons. One is that if we have town officials who are trying to convince boards and commissions that we can do this, or you don't need to worry about parking mitigation areas, because the town would be willing to build parking garages.
I don't,
That's a problem.
that
That's
would,
an
I
economic
don't think
issue.
that happened.
Well, I don't know what will happen. It's gonna be.
No, I don't think it has
Number-
happened.
Then number 2, on the expense issue, on the revenue side of the ledger, if we can't provide parking to our downtown merchants, their businesses will fail. And, I mean, Mr. Rock, I thought you made you saw the effects of how parking is currently. I mean, I can't imagine, I presume you made a very good case, which I think is most merchants' cases. People have to walk more than a block or 2. They just might not come to you.
Well, I think we may have to change our mindset, being, you may need to walk more than a block. I think that right now, if the way our downtown looks right now, if we had some of these regulations that we're talking about and we were to rebuild it, our downtown, we would just be more parking. We would not have the downtown that we all love, that is so vibrant.
We couldn't have the community theater.
We couldn't have the community theater.
It would look totally different.
It would look totally different. And in terms of development and parking, people, they have a car, they're gonna want a parking spot. So the market is gonna drive some of that development, and also financing, for development. Banks are gonna want some level of parking when you're doing residential development. These are all, and I said it at the last meeting, willing to have these conversations, would just ask if you have specific questions and information that you want, that if town departments are gonna come to present, I just want to make sure that they're prepared and that we're having a discussion that is meaningful and has outcomes to it.
Why would that be a problem with having our meetings, talk to them about our concern about revenue and expenses in an open setting, a public setting, where not only we can ask the questions, but also explain our concerns so that they can weigh them when they're making their decisions and giving recommendations to town boards and commissions. So we're not only acting as a silo at the TPZ. Why can't we do that and let the taxpayers listen to it and participate if they want to, either online or in these chairs? I don't understand what the problem
I'm not saying that that department heads cannot come here. June 11th, as I said, right now, I personally have a conflict because we're having a hate crimes presentation in Fairfield. I don't know if TP&Z is meeting that night or not. I was hesitant, as I shared at the last meeting, that I would caution any board to not muddy deliberations that are happening at another board. Like TP&Z they're debating this right now, and it might be a moot point that they might have these conservation districts decided on. The July for the mitigation,
Parking
parking mitigation zones. And respect that they're duly elected officials and want them to have that conversation. In terms of economic development downtown, I mean, we can absolutely invite Mr. Barnhart and Ms. Harrigan here. I would just ask again, if there's specific things that you want to talk about, or if we want to talk about parking, we can schedule it. The July 1st date is not much of an immediate date as we thought it was 2 weeks ago. We got clarification on that and would just want to be part of that discussion as first select person.
July 2nd, someone comes in with a proposal with this new law and says, hey, the new law is in effect pursuant to the state, July 1st, everybody has to comply on July 1st. Somebody comes in with a proposal for downtown, 15 units, purposely goes for 15 units.
My understanding is that,
Now they can do it. You can't stop them.
my understanding is the July 1st deadline is for all municipalities around the state to comply with the law. We already are compliant with the law. So therefore, a developer can come in today with that. They don't have to wait till July 2nd. They can come in today.
Doesn't exist.
No deadline. They could have,
Yeah.
We've already,
and they're not.
being compliant with the law. That the deadline is to change your zoning laws to allow the parking. So that's already occurred.
So then we should be doing it faster is what you're saying.
No. So the deadline.
They should be doing it tonight, or they should have done it 2 months ago.
No, what
Start
I'm saying is that I, two things. I agree. I had some discussions after that meeting too. I agree that the urgency to have it is not there because what you told us at the meeting wasn't right. The deadline didn't exist. And according to the first selectman, they're not building, parking. But let me just finish. I generally am in line with your thinking, not on the urgency of having this parking meeting per se, but I do think that we should, I don't know how we necessarily fit in, but I want to see everybody not working in silos, and I want to know about what the population projection is, what the demographics are, what the revenue projections are, what the capital costs are, what the operating costs. I think all of that needs to start to be coalesced. So I really am, sympathetic to what you're saying. I don't think that this particular parking issue requires a special meeting. And because everybody's told me that they're not building parking, that they're not gonna build a big parking complex. And, if that's not the case, and if there's not an actual July deadline, which is the whole premise of our discussion last time, I don't see it. I think.
My premise on the last, I don't know. And I thought the town attorney should be issuing a legal opinion on that July 1st. Did I not correct?
You did, yeah.
You said you were going to communicate that to the first select woman.
And I did.
As the town attorney issued an opinion about that, because there's people on TPZ, only they've asked for town, wanted that, and they have no idea exactly the interpretation of the statute. So in regards to what the interpretation of the statute is, I think it's really important that the town attorney, who is a land use expert, he publishes that on his website and specializes and he concentrates on land use. At the very least, he should be issuing an opinion about how this works to the TPZ and maybe to the other town boards, so that we all understand, maybe July 1st means nothing. Maybe it does mean something, but you have to get that right.
What do you think happens on July 1st?
I don't know, to be honest with you. It's not something I've been charged to like look at, but all I keep hearing is this July 1st thing. And there's people on TPZ, members who've talked to me about it. They're like, this date's coming up and our body, I keep this and punting it, like as we approach a deadline. I don't know, but it seems like the town attorney on something so important should be giving an interpretation on what the July 1st deadline is or is not. And I think he knows his stuff on land use. I would respect his opinion, whatever that opinion was.
My understanding is TPZ has access to Phil.
Okay, and that interpretation is coming from Emmeline and from who?
From the first select person
They have-
confirmed that
they
they have
have-
access
they
to.
have
And
access
have
to-
you gotten the town attorney to weigh in on this statute to you?
I have not gotten the town attorney to weigh on the statute to me. Have talked to other peoples about the town attorney and spoken to the chair of TP&Z, who knows that he has access to the town attorney and has offered to have executive session to advise his board. Given the number of lawsuits we've been involved in regarding zoning decisions, he's very cautious about opinions that are publicly shared that could potentially be used in future litigation. So he proceeds with caution and wants to make sure that he's giving the board the information they need. And I don't want to speak for Mr. Corsello. I mean, this is, the
Yeah,
town
but
attorney is available to
The
him.
town attorney is available to the board.
That's not what some of the board members say. They said they wanted the town attorney to be there, but Mr.
Talk to the
Costello,
chair.
Talk to their chair.
whatever. I still think my motion still stands. I would like there to be a meeting. We've been promised to, during the budget season, that you were going to bring in to stop me from asking questions during that meeting that you thought were not in line for the budget hearing, that we would have the Director of Community and Economic Development in, as well as the TPZ Director. And, I thought this would be a great opportunity to do that. And that's what I still want to happen, and that my motion still stands.
Yeah, and that's fine. We'll vote on that motion momentarily, but just to confirm, it wasn't this year only that we decided to not have Mr. Barnhart speak during the budget cycle. It was actually my first year on the board, so that was 4 years ago, where we decided, look, we all are thirsty for information, hungry for information from the Department of Economic Development. And we could easily take up an hour just discussing what's the state of the town, what's going on, and not to take up valuable budget time. It was moved to a quarterly meeting, and I'm happy to continue that process. I said it earlier that I would. It would not fit in our May quarterly meeting, but I'm happy to have invite them both to come in at our next quarterly meeting, which I believe is in September. So happy to do that.
Mr. Curley, I think that's a good idea. But I also think that to have people come in without any questions beforehand and to have it be this, what frankly will turn into circus.
Yep.
I don't want to participate in that. If we want to get together as a group collaboratively and come up with questions, send it to them so that we can have a productive meeting, I think that would be great. But I don't want to do like a show where we're just grilling people. It's not gonna.
I hear you, Shane. That'd be great. You should sell that idea to Congress and the United States Senate too.
We're not Congress in the United States.
It would speed their meetings along too, but that's not the way it works.
Why is it the way they work? We can decide how it works.
We're elected officials. We should be able to ask
We
questions.
can ask questions. I'm just saying, let's not have it be this open-ended deposition. Why don't we, just what we did on Dwight.
Submit the questions
We
in
submitted
advance.
questions to the Board of Ed. We had them answer them. And we asked lots of questions after that. I'm just saying, put a little order. I'm not saying you can't ask your questions. I'm not at all saying that you can't get there and ask any questions you want. I'm just saying, let's literally, as a group, think about what we want to know and collaborate and come up with a list and get those questions. I want the answers too. I just don't want to do it in a disorderly way. I've been in enough of these meetings to know that we go 40 minutes, we don't get any questions, don't get any answers. I'm not at all suggesting that when somebody comes in here, you shouldn't be able to go along any line you want to. I'm just saying, like, let's actually work as a group and say, what are we trying to figure out? What would be good questions to have? Let's get documents ahead of time. Because you know, we do in our meetings, we say, I'd like a follow-up on that. Get that information for me. Let's have it beforehand. Would you go into a deposition with no records to ask people about? No. You'd go in there and you'd ask people about some of the evidence that you'd already discovered, right? So.
There's plenty of questions I asked that I don't know the answers to.
That
That
yeah.
hours of questions afterwards, because get people lying and all sorts of stuff.
Fair enough. All I'm saying is, if we're gonna do it, I really, really think we should do it. We should even get together as a group and say, like, what are some things that are worthwhile? Because otherwise it starts to look like we're just trying to politicize everything.
Fish going
And
on.
fish, and it's just a waste, it's a waste of our time, it's a waste of town employees'
I will
time.
say that I'm sure that Mr. Barnhart has kind of a canned presentation that he's given to this board many times before. He updates it for current information, but it's basically a state of the town from an economic development standpoint. If we were to collect our thoughts in advance and share them with him, he could incorporate them into his presentation. And that would actually make for a pretty efficient night, I would suspect. And oh, by the way, I would not want to limit this board from asking questions in the meeting beyond what was previously submitted. We're not going to do that. If someone has a new thought or something comes up that they didn't think about, but they did in the moment, absolutely. But I agree that having it without structure is less efficient. So, okay. So the motion, I believe, in front of us, we certainly had this healthy discussion and debate. If I'm not mistaken, was to vote to move forward with the June 11th meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will say, just secondly, if the first level couldn't go there, I'm willing to make adjust the date for a date that she can be there. Look at our schedules right now to have it before the end of the month.
All right, that's fine.
Can I just make a recommendation? Other than possibly changing the date, maybe a little bit of, based on all the feedback here, a little bit of time to put together what we're looking to accomplish at the meeting. Any questions in advance, an agenda or some kind of itinerary of what we're looking at.
Yeah, and on that point, one of the.
Thoughts in writing on, what, I wasn't at the meeting.
Right.
So I missed a lot of this, but I certainly think that if you
You're right.
took dates and planned a meeting, and it certainly sounds like there was gonna be a meeting. And I saw emails about it and I was like, oh, should I be blocking my calendar? There was emails back and forth about a meeting.
But if you watch the
So-
last 20 minutes of our meeting, if you do get a chance to do that, one of the things I kept asking in the meeting is like, I'm happy to have a special meeting, but I'm not sure what the agenda item is. And
I do think he should certainly be responding to you, but I mean, if we could possibly put together. I mean,
I
it
think-
certainly does impact finance. I mean, to the extent that the tax rate shifts, like we just saw, it does impact stuff. But I don't know enough to be dangerous on the parking situation.
Sorry, Amy. I didn't
yeah,
mean to interrupt.
sorry, yeah, finish your thought, please.
No, I don't know enough about this whole part. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I have to go back and watch that last 20 minutes to get the history, but I was just saying it might make sense to put together an agenda and some questions in advance.
And
I was just gonna say, I don't think I'm gonna vote for your motion, Jim, but I do think it's probably an important topic to discuss somewhere down the line, and we may have much more clarity about what's going on in the next month or so, given what the TPC is doing. And so I'd rather have them do their work and then have representatives of them come to us and tell us, this is what we did. Maybe if you wouldn't like that because it could affect or wouldn't alleviate the concerns that you have now, but I just think maybe we need to let them do their business first and then. I mean, this is them. I can't imagine that the members of the TPC don't share the same concerns that we share. I would think that they have, maybe I'm totally wrong, they have in their mind the well-being of the merchants in the center of town when they're considering doing what they're considering. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and but I don't think so. So that's kind of how I see it.
And as the chair, I just want to make sure everyone understands that if I truly felt that this was a Board of Finance issue that there was an impending capital expense that someone's gonna be obligated for, I would absolutely advocate for getting the right people in front of this board for disclosure, discussion, debate, and ultimately a vote. But I just, in this instance, I just have not seen any evidence that this, as it's been discussed, is a Board of Finance item.
Let's just go back and watch some of the TPZ meetings because things are being voted on even tonight, possibly, as you said. That one of the reasons why you shouldn't have to worry about units being developed and no parking needed is because the town, this is Emmeline said, we just have to build parking garages. So that's what they're being told. That's what people are voting on.
And when I spoke to Emmeline, I asked her directly if that's something that she stated, and she said, no, she's not advocating for parking.
I'll get the quote and then I'll bring it back to the board.
This is a.
I'll get the board, I'll get the quote. Matter of fact, I will get it, the video and I'll see if we can get it on for us to watch. You know, that'll be fun.
That sounds important. I mean, that's a big deal.
It is a big.
I mean, it's coming down to whether that was actually said in public or it wasn't. I mean, are we saying that he's a liar?
Well, there's two different.
It either was said or it wasn't said.
All right.
I mean,
Are you willing to say that if he finds this video, we have a meeting? Because that's what we should be voting on right now. I'm not saying whether, I didn't see it. I don't know if he's making this up or not.
Well, all I know is I spoke to Miss Aragon and I asked her directly, are there any plans to make a proposal for the town to build any parking garages or otherwise, buy land or construct parking structures? And the answer was no.
That's not her purview, though.
It is certainly.
I am telling
She
you
said
that
twice.
there is no plan to build a parking garage.
She has no authority.
There is no plan, and
You're using it for justification on why not to have a parking mitigation zone.
well, I don't,
Using it as a justification to the member PZ. And if Mr. Barnhart's using that as a justification to the Economic Development Commission, that we would just build parking garages, if those are being used as rationales for why people should not have a parking mitigation study in our pristine downtown, we need to know that, and that's why I wanted to have the conversation with the people present. That's it. I'm not trying to create extra meetings for it.
Well,
But
certainly.
I'm also, I've lived here,
It will.
Sure.
I've lived here for 51
agree. All
years.
right,
And
well,
I don't want to see this downtown overrun with cars and businesses not have a place for parking for people in the town. It's just, it's like you're gonna kill the golden goose.
Believe me, I think our downtown is very quaint. It's a draw. It pulls a lot of people in from out of town to our restaurants, to our community theater, to our ice cream shop. I love it. I think our downtown is great. My office is right smack in the middle of downtown Fairfield, and I love walking to the various delis or otherwise for lunch. And it's a fantastic place. I want it to stay charming and quaint. And if the TPZ votes to put this mitigation zone in place and cover downtown, I think a lot of this discussion.
It would go away. I understand, but if they don't,
So maybe we should tune into TPZ and see if they voted on something tonight. I don't know.
well, then we can cancel the meeting.
well, you should still want to have the meeting.
I still want to,
Still have the meeting for economic development, because adding residential units and mixed use downtown, that's good for the economy. That's good for local businesses. Those are consumers, those are people to work in those businesses. Those are almost harder things to bring to a downtown to make it vibrant than parking, where we kind of think, we're hearing from experts that we are overparked. We're just not necessarily utilizing our parking as effectively as we could.
And
You know,
I
and-
still think there's low hanging fruit, whether
There
it's the
definitely-
diagonal
there
spots that we
definitely-
talked about.
there Definitely is.
Yeah,
And you had suggested at the last meeting, maybe there's a consideration or a study that says maybe some of the streets become one way so that there's additional parking that way. There
Well, and-
are a lot of low hanging fruit things that can be done that don't require a lot of capital expense.
We should have the meeting though. I agree with that. We should have the meeting regardless, and it should not just be confined to the parking question. It should be a bigger meeting. The parking thing is almost like we're getting We're missing the.
I'm just hoping that we're not having this meeting when there's 6, 7 applications downtown, because people are like, let's get the application in before there's a parking mitigation. Don't, because if we get it in, we just file it. All you have to do is file it. Okay? File the plan, you run in to file the plans. This is what they do on the 830G and all that other stuff. File the plan. We can't do a thing about it later. All of a sudden we're like, oh my God, there's 6 plans, 15 units, 2 cars each that are gonna be there all weekend, watching football in their houses like they should and whatever they wanna do.
Yep.
Parking all over, taking merchant spots. I know that though. So it's.
So maybe I can make a suggestion. Like I had talked about it, having our annual economic development and planning meeting at our September quarterly. If I can find a date that's not, that's in advance of that, it would be a special meeting because we're about to adjourn for our summer break. But I'm happy to try and find a date that works for everybody in this room, and both Emmeline and Mark. And that it be a broad discussion, not limited to just this parking issue, but we can certainly ask questions about it. In advance of that meeting, we'll assemble, I'm happy to receive and compile questions in advance, but not limit questions to those that were submitted. We can ask live questions in the meeting. But I would take those questions and submit them or provide them to both Mark and Emmeline so that they can use that to shape their presentation to us. So if you guys are open to that, I'm happy to try and do that. I think that's going to take a little bit of time to assemble our questions, find a date that works for people. Maybe that's, I don't think it's in June, but maybe it's late, mid-July. And if you guys are up for a special meeting in our summer break, I'm happy to schedule. Is that a good compromise?
Yeah, try. I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to try to do it before the end of June. I mean, I would really like an interpretation from the town attorney just to know. I mean, I don't think this is putting him really on the spot about what the July 1st date means and what it doesn't mean. It'd be nice to have that, know that we fully understood it. We handled something in executive session recently, town attorney opinion that I'm not going to discuss the particulars of that because it was an executive session that I thought he did an excellent job on, and like something like that, like a 2 or 3 page, like what could happen when, like, you know, that's not like putting the town at risk as for a
But it was an executive session.
used against us.
But it was an executive session, that information that was shared.
Well, that was an executive session for different reasons. You know, I'm not going to get into the reasons why that was an executive session for a
I think that
specific.
there's conversations that can be had in executive session just to protect the town under the reasons why you go into executive session.
But what gave me comfort is the understanding that TPZ has access to our town attorney. And they can ask them, they can ask him questions.
I'd be willing to even have the town attorney at our meeting. And so we could ask him questions about what the July 1st thing without him writing for a formal opinion. Just have him be familiar with the statute and what it means, what it doesn't mean. If he's comfortable. It doesn't think that it's making the town liable by his interpretation of the statute.
All right. So, I'm happy to try and fast track this special meeting as well. But I wanted like follow some structure. So it's now June 2nd. If I ask everybody to get me their list of questions for days, I can submit them to Emmeline and Mark and ask them to prepare a presentation that addresses these questions, and we can try and find a
Are you
date.
setting a date though, or are you gonna get the questions and then decide whether we can have a date or not? I don't understand.
I'm happy.
I don't want to do all this work and then all of a sudden no one's available and we don't have a meeting.
I can't ask them real time what their schedules are. All I can do is ask for availability.
Mr. Curley, can I make a suggestion? So whether it's June 10th or July 15th.
Yeah.
Or frankly, October something.
Yeah.
To me, I don't see tremendous urgency in the timing. I think the important thing is to be methodical in what we're trying to gather. So what I would rather do is put our heads together, think what would be useful information to have. And the way I envision it is that information ultimately gets incorporated into capital planning or some iteration of the capital planning workshop. That's why it would be useful and relevant to us. I don't want to just go to a presentation. And to me, to do it in 7 days, I mean, I'm pretty busy right now, so
no,
it's gonna be
look,
tricky
it's-
for me to turn that around.
Yep.
I will do it if that's what everybody wants, but I think we're creating, the fire isn't under the feet. I hear what you're saying about the July 1 deadline. I appreciate it. I really do. I think it's, I think it's mostly a boogeyman. And, so I don't think we need to do it in the summer, but, if you all want to do it, I'll participate happily, whatever to do. But I think we can push it off. And I think it's better to, be a little bit more deliberative about it than just to rush a meeting and to get lousy questions and.
I mean, if TPZ meets tonight and they set a parking mitigation zone downtown, then I don't think there's any urgency on it any longer. Let's just be honest with you.
Let's find
And
out.
I'd be fine with,
And then we-
I'd be fine with punting it and then handling it whenever you're gonna get Emma line and whatever in, because then it's established.
Another,
It's really, I'm not saying that the issues, like Madam First Selectwoman said, should not still be discussed. But there's no urgency on it.
and separate from any action taken by TPZ, Madam's first select person, is there a way to give Mr. Walsh comfort with absent a meeting and executive session that could he speak to Phil, our town attorney directly and discuss this?
If you have
July 1?
questions, or in this board, if you want to if you want to write a letter to the TP&Z, you can do that as well. And you can give comment as individuals to TP&Z as
No,
well.
I'm talking specifically about.
I will
legal
talk to
opinion.
I will talk to the town attorney and either have him reach out to you or to you, in terms of, and check with Tom as well, just to circle back on what has already been shared potentially, with TP&Z and see if that could be forwarded to this board
Okay.
about the July 1st deadline.
Yeah, because I think if either of those two
Just to
things
get
happen,
some-
one, TPZ acts on a mitigation zone, or we know that the July 1st thing is not like, my understanding is we're exposed today, same amount of
Yeah.
exposure today as it is July 2nd.
Understanding as well.
So,
Right.
That it's already, that we complied with the law. The deadline is to comply with the law by July 1. We're already in compliance, therefore we're already exposed, and that there's no deadline to establish one of these parking zones because the language there is sort of, you
Until we
may do
do-
it. It's permissive.
So as of January 1st, people were able to put in applications with
Yes.
no parking.
I think that,
from the date in which we were in compliance with the state law, which I think was
I mean, I don't know any.
January, February timeframe.
It's kind of scary that there's no urgency on TPZ to worry about that and made
Well,
it in one way or
I think they
another.
have, but I think to the Madam First Select Person's point, I think there are other constraints that are limiting developers from submitting, and whether it's lender constraints or market constraints. And just like the 830G applications that all came in with parking, even though there was no requirement to provide parking. So, but we do have a motion on the table. You want to take a vote on that, or how would you like to proceed?
I just don't know how I don't really understand. I appreciate you trying to work with me on this, but I'm trying to think, where are we coming out if I pulled my motion? We're just gonna leave it up,
No,
in the air? Like, how's this gonna work?
So,
And if I got some comfort on that, then I'd be willing to pull my motion
yeah,
and whatever, but I'm not sure, you're saying trying to get questions in 7 days, but we have no idea where this is all going.
so I think there are three pieces. One, we see what happens at TPZ tonight.
Sure.
That if they took action on the mitigation zone for downtown, then that makes the urgency go away. Two, if we can get some confirmation from our town attorney that there's no, the July 1 isn't a relevant date
For the parking
for the
zones.
parking piece, and developers can submit whenever. That just kind of clarifies that point, because I think that exit makes it more urgent than less. There's no magic about July 1, but we can get confirmation on that. But 3, I'm saying in good faith that I will work towards asking Mark and Emmeline to come in earlier than September at a date that works for everybody, but that we would also do it in an organized way so that with whatever time works for you guys to prepare questions, not a finite list that you're restricted to, but something to put some framework around it. And then once we gather those, I'll submit them and ask them, I'll poll everybody on what dates work. And that may not be June, but it may be summer in advance of September.
In good faith, I appreciate you trying to work with the rest of the body, trying to listen. I will withdraw my motion based on, you're an honorable guy. I trust you. And so based on that, I will withdraw my motion and we'll see how we can proceed.
Well, thank you.
And I'll talk to you about it.
Thank you. I appreciate the collaboration. Good. Okay. Last item, you adjourn. Shane, second by Mr. Rock.
Oh.
Oh.